Chapter 967. Arakatsuki Michinoku was expressionless. So many people had died at the Thousand Crane Tea Party this time round, and each of them had a greater background than the other. Even 7 void reversions had died. There was no way she could escape responsibility. If she did not handle this properly, even Chiguramon would be implicated. However, Chiguramon was indebted to Suzumo. If she were to kill Suzumo here right now, Chiguramon would definitely be labeled as an ingrate and cause endless criticism. Arakatsuki Michinoku's thoughts raced as she came up with a plan. Suzumo, if not for the fact that you've done Chiguramon a favor in the past, I would definitely kill you here for what you've done today. I won't let you off. Arakatsuki Michinoku's voice was cold. However, Lenro, Little Fatty and the others were delighted when they heard that. In other words, Arakatsuki Michinoku did not seem like she was prepared to attack Suzumo. Pausing for a moment, Arakatsuki Michinoku changed the topic. However, you've caused a huge disaster today. Even I, Chiguramon, can't protect you. I've repeatedly reminded you to restrain yourself. You're the one who refused to listen. You can't blame anyone else. A mocking look flashed through Suzumo's eyes as he said indifferently, Patriarch, there's no need to beat around the bush. Just say what you have to say. Arakatsuki Michinoku took a deep breath and said calmly, I won't kill you, but you can't leave Chiguramon either. Stay here and continue being a guest. A commotion broke out in the crowd. What a ruthless move. How ruthless. On the surface, she didn't attack Suzumo. However, if she imprisons him here, Suzumo won't be able to escape death when the Dharma characteristic experts of Chaos Essence Sect, Sword Sect and Heavenly Dipper Sect arrive. In that case, Chiguramon can be considered as giving Chaos Essence Sect and the other immortal sects an explanation. Furthermore, most importantly, Arakatsuki Michinoku did not attack Suzumo and won't be labeled as an ingrate. What a way to kill someone with a borrowed knife. All the cultivators present who could cultivate to the nascent soul realm were not fools. They quickly understood what Arakatsuki Michinoku was thinking and began discussing softly. Suzumo. Suzumo chuckled and asked instead, why? You want to detain me in Thousand Crane Sect? Junior, you should know what's good for you. Arakatsuki Michinoku replied indifferently, as the Patriarch, I'm inviting you to stay in Chiguramon for a few days. Furthermore, you're best friends with Lenro and haven't seen each other for 100 years. I'm sure you have a lot to talk about and I can fulfill your wish. Master, shut up. The moment Lenro opened her mouth, she was interrupted by Arakatsuki Michinoku with a glare. How pretentious, a look of mockery flashed through Suzumo's eyes as he sneered, Arakatsuki Michinoku, you don't have any of the righteousness of the immortal sects at all. You've learned 100% of how to be a hypocrite and cunning. Suzumo retracted his smile and asked slowly, what if I insist on leaving? Then don't blame me for not being courteous and suppressing you here. Arakatsuki Michinoku said coldly, Junior, since we've already said this, I advise you to take care of yourself and suffer less. The Dharma Daojuan's aura descended slowly and enveloped the entire mystic courtyard. Jining Jinjuan felt as though he was carrying a towering mountain on his back and could not move at all. Ha 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 ha. Suzumo roared with laughter. Even in the face of the Dharma Daojuan's aura, he was still full of pride and shouted, listen up, Lanyue. Although I can't defeat you, if I, Suzumo, want to leave, you can't stop me. His pride was soaring. It was already rare for Jining Jinjuan to be able to remain neither servile nor overbearing against the Dharma Daojun despite the difference of 2 major cultivation realms. The cultivators did not even dare to think about challenging the Dharma Daojuan's might directly like Suzumo. However, that was not a bluff on Suzumo's part. Indeed, he was no match for the Dharma Daojun in a head-on fight. Back then, he killed the Dharma Daojun of Hellfire Hall because the latter was at the end of his lifespan and was on the verge of death. Otherwise, his Baron would not have been able to kill the latter. Right now, there were 3 Dharma Daojun in the mystic courtyard with exuberant blood chi. It was clear that they were at their peak. Su Zimo's Baron had a negligible effect on the 3 Dharma Daojun. However, he had many trump cards. With the fusion of his 2 essence spirits and the help of the Mingwang prayer beads, he could break free from the Dharma Daojun suppression for a short period of time. Even the Dharma Daojun would not be able to stop him if he released blood escape. Junior, you've provoked me repeatedly. Today, I'll teach you a lesson. Arakatsuki Michinoku's gaze turned cold and his glabella shone. He was prepared to attack personally. Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he was about to release blood escape as well. Hold on. Right then, a soft shout sounded from the distant skies, interrupting the tense atmosphere in the mystic courtyard. Everyone turned to look. 3 cultivators flew over from the horizon. One of them was a middle-aged man who was relatively young. The other 2 cultivators were old men with white hair and beards. They looked like they were in their twilight years, but they were hale and hearty with rosy cheeks. It's Master! Nangong Ling, Yu Hanyun and Ru Xian's eyes lit up as they exclaimed. Among the 3 cultivators, the middle-aged man was their master, Tao Lord Scarlet Star. However, they did not recognize the 2 old men beside Tao Lord Scarlet Star. Apart from Tao Lord Scarlet Star, the 2 old men were also at the Dharma characteristic realm. Dharma Daojun of 100 Refinement Sect is here first. Seems like he's going to take Su Zimo away. Fufu, how can it be that easy? Don't forget, this is the Chiguramon. If Arakatsuki Michinoku doesn't agree, the 3 Dharma Daojun want to take him away. See, this is going to be interesting. The cultivators discussed animatedly with excited expressions. In the blink of an eye, Tao Lord Scarlet Star and the 2 old men arrived in the mystic courtyard. Looking at the messy courtyard and the many broken corpses that hadn't been cleaned up in time, a trace of shock flashed through the eyes of the 3 of them. When Tao Lord Scarlet Star caught sight of Yi Tiancheng's corpse, his pupils constricted. However, he calmed down before long, as though he was prepared for the scene before him. What happened next was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The crowd that was initially silent exploded instantly. Under countless gazes, Tao Lord Scarlet Star turned around and arrived before Su Zimo. He bowed slightly and said softly, "Uncle Master, I'm late." The crowd was in an uproar. Most of the cultivators present had more or less heard of Tao Lord Scarlet Star's name. Even if they had not heard of him, Tao Lord Scarlet Star was a Dharma characteristic expert after all. But now, he was bowing respectfully to Jining Jinjuan. What was going on? The cultivators at the scene were astounded. Even Nangong Ling and the other 2 were stunned. The 3 of them knew that Tao Lord Scarlet Star was unwilling to acknowledge Su Zimo as his uncle master from the bottom of his heart. Back then, he had only braced himself and agreed reluctantly to address Su Zimo as Little Uncle Master. Furthermore, in order to protect his dignity, Su Zimo had once said that he could address him by his name if there were outsiders around. To think that Tao Lord Scarlet Star would do such a thing in front of everyone with so many major factions gathered. Nangong Ling and the other 2 did not see any hint of unwillingness on Tao Lord Scarlet Star's face. To be precise, when Tao Lord Scarlet Star found out about Su Zimo's true identity from Hakka Dojin, he was willing to address the latter as Uncle Master. The reason why he was respectful to Su Zimo was not because of seniority. It was because the young man before him was worthy of his respect. Chapter 968. No wonder you're so fearless. So, you have helpers. Arakatsuki Michinoku had a calm expression and sneered, "Scarlet Star, the 3 of you Dharma Daojun want to take someone away from me? The 3 of us are enough." Tao Lord Scarlet Star turned around and looked at Arakatsuki Michinoku with a calm voice. Arakatsuki Michinoku sneered again, "This is Chiguramon. As long as I give the order, the 3 of you will have to stay here. Lass, you're too arrogant." Among the 3 of them, an old man with a walking stick stood out with a dignified aura. Another old man asked in a deep voice, "Lass, where's your master?" Arakatsuki Michinoku frowned and flicked his sleeves. Who are you guys? Do you think you can meet my master just because you want to? Elder Gu. Right then, the void reversion of Ancient Array sect shouted in disbelief with a shocked expression. Yes, nodding, the old man with the crutch looked at the void reversion of Ancient Array sect and nodded. Little monkey, it's you. It's me, the void reversion nodded and bowed hurriedly, leaning forward and bowing. This person had a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks. Little Monkey was his pet name and not many people knew about it. Grandpa Go. Right then, Tang Yu of Elixir Yang sect blinked her eyes and exclaimed. Tang Yu ran over and took a closer look. She could not help but laugh. Grandpa Go, it's really you. I didn't even dare to recognize you at first. Little Tang, how old are you now? Why do you still like to pretend to be a young master? Old man Gu had a doting expression and chuckled as well. Grandpa Gu, weren't you in seclusion? Why are you here? Tang Yu asked curiously. Old man Gu retracted his smile and said indifferently, I've been in seclusion for a long time and my body is a little rusty. I came out for a walk and meet an old friend. Arakatsuki Michinoku frowned slightly. For some reason, he suddenly felt uneasy. Dao Lord Scarlet Star raised his voice. Lan Yu, may I ask where Senior Shengguan is? I've said it before, my master is in seclusion. Arakatsuki Michinoku said coldly. Dao Lord Scarlet Star harumphed. Lan Yu, I came here before the tea party because I had something to discuss with Senior Shengguan. In the end, you rejected me. What are your intentions? It was only at that moment that Su Zimo, Nan Gongling and the others found out that Dao Lord Scarlet Star had been to Chiguramon a few days ago. However, he didn't see the person he wanted to see and returned empty-handed. Chiguramon, I'm the patriarch. I can make all the decisions. Arakatsuki Michinoku's gaze flickered and his voice turned colder. There was already a hint of anger in his tone that could be vented at any moment. Elder Gu, who was leaning on his walking stick, said slowly, Lass, tell Shengguan that old friends of Elixir Yang sect and Ancient Array sect are here to visit her. She'll naturally come out of seclusion. Old friends? Fufu. Arakatsuki Michinoku sneered, with all due respect, I've met all of my master's old friends. However, I've never met the two of you. We've known your master for thousands of years. At that time, you didn't exist yet. Elder Gu blew his beard and was getting impatient. Arakatsuki Michinoku's expression darkened completely as he said coldly, what a joke. If any random cultivator claims to be my master's old friend and wants to meet her, wouldn't my master be annoyed to death? Scarlet Star, I've tolerated you guys on account that you're from the unorthodox sections. If you guys push your luck again, don't blame me for being merciless. Arakatsuki Michinoku slapped his storage bag and tossed out a pink spirit crane that turned into a streak of light that shot into the air. A gigantic crane appeared and cried into the skies. A crisp and clear cry of a crane echoed through the entire Chiguramon. Leng Ro's expression changed. This was a signal to gather all Dharma characteristic experts of the sect. Apart from those in seclusion, everyone else could see it. Bang! 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 A series of powerful auras burst forth from every corner of the Chiguramon as figures rushed into the skies one after another. Before long, dozens of Dharma Daojun descended. All of them had unfriendly expressions and surrounded the mystic courtyard. A massive might reverberated through the entire courtyard and many Jinying Jinjuan present did not dare to speak. Who would have thought that the 1,000-crane tea party would develop to such a state and even escalate to a confrontation between Dharma characteristic experts? Right now, both sides were ready to fight at any moment. Girl, what are you trying to do? Elder Gu blew his beard and glared. His anger surged as he shouted, you still want to attack us? How dare you? Shengguanzi, why aren't you coming out? Elder Gu's eyes lit up as he slammed his walking stick heavily on the ground. Rumble. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, endless beams of light burst forth from every corner of the Chiguramon and surged into the skies. The terrain of the sect was changing. The light of formation patterns? Suzumo murmured softly. That was a sign that the formation was activated. Arakatsuki Michinoku's expression changed starkly as he exclaimed, "The sect protection formation." The sect protection formation of the Chiguramon would definitely not be activated unless it was absolutely necessary. She had not expected that this inconspicuous old man before her would activate the Chiguramon's sect protection formation remotely. I was the one who personally set up the Chiguramon's sect protection formation. How dare you try to attack me today, girl? Elder Gu hollered with a booming voice. Dozens of Chiguramon Dharma Daojun stood in midair and exchanged glances with hesitant expressions. From the looks of it, this old man had a huge background and they did not dare to attack rashly. Even those in seclusion would be alarmed when the sect protection formation was activated. Boom! Right then, a loud bang sounded from the depths of the Chiguramon. A powerful aura burst forth. Against the envelopment of that aura, all the Dharma Daojun present were as insignificant as ants. Conjoint body mighty figure. Only someone at the conjoint body realm could release such a terrifying aura. Who's calling me? In the blink of an eye, a figure had already arrived above the mystic courtyard, as though it was one with the entire world. Nobody noticed how this person arrived, it was as though she had appeared out of thin air. It was a woman who looked even younger than Arakatsuki Michinoku. Her black hair fluttered and she was extremely beautiful. Her skin was fair and her eyes exuded a might that looked down on all living beings. Master! When Arakatsuki Michinoku saw this person, his expression changed and he bowed hurriedly. Lowering his head, his eyes were filled with endless fear. Hee, Shengguan, you're still so young, Elder Gu laughed strangely. Shengguan shifted her gaze and chuckled when she caught sight of Elder Gu. After taking that step, my lifespan increased exponentially and I naturally look younger. At that point, the crowd no longer had any doubts. The person who arrived was a conjoint body mighty figure. Shengguan landed in the courtyard and looked at the two old men, scolding jokingly, "Are you two old fogies tired of living? Why are you causing such a huge commotion at my place?" Although Shengguan was scolding, there was a hint of joy in her eyes from reuniting with old friends. "If you guys want to see me, just get Lan Yu to inform me. Why did you activate the sect protection formation?" Shengguan shook her head with a helpless expression. Chapter 969. When he heard that, Arakatsuki Michinoku panicked. Hee, should we inform Lan Yue? Elder Gu sneered, "We'll thank the heavens if she doesn't take our heads." Shengguan, your choice of patriarch isn't that great. Elder Gu pursed his lips. Shengguan expression changed slightly as she narrowed her eyes and surveyed her surroundings. Gradually, she discovered something amiss. When she saw the dozens of Dharma Daojun around her, her first reaction was that these cultivators of the sect had also rushed over because of the sect protection formation. However, from the looks of it, there seemed to be more to it. Arakatsuki Michinoku's thoughts raced as he forced a smile. "Master, I don't know the identities of these two seniors." Shut up, Shengguan interrupted Arakatsuki Michinoku and turned to look at the two Dharma Daojun behind Arakatsuki Michinoku. She said indifferently, "The two of you, tell me everything that happened just now." The two Dharma Daojun looked hesitant and exchanged glances, seemingly troubled. Shengguan said slowly, "If you hide anything, you'll be punished according to the sect rules." Both of their hearts skipped a beat and they did not dare to hesitate any longer. They recounted everything that happened at the Thousand Crane Tea Party without missing out on any details. Initially, Shengguan even acknowledged it twice. Towards the end, she was already silent and expressionless. However, her gaze turned colder. Standing beside her, Arakatsuki Michinoku felt his heart skip a beat. This was the first time Dao Lord Scarlet Star, Elder Gu, and Elder Gu heard about everything that happened at the tea party and were excited. The two old men looked at Su Zimo and nodded from time to time without concealing the admiration in their eyes. Su Zimo lamented internally, judging from the backgrounds of those two old men, they're probably experts from thousands of years ago. Given Dao Lord Scarlet Star's qualifications, I'm afraid he won't be able to invite them. Could it be? Not long after, the two Dharma Daojun recounted the many conflicts that had occurred at the tea party. After hearing this, Shengguanzi remained silent for a long time. The atmosphere in the arena was extremely oppressive. It was like the calm before the storm. Lan Yu, after a while, Shengguanzi sighed faintly and said word by word in a cold voice, "How dare you?" Arikatsuki Michinoku's mind trembled. With a plop, he knelt on the ground with a terrified expression. He quickly said, "Master, please listen to my explanation." Shengguanzi said, "The purpose of the Thousand Crane Tea Party is to invite the nascent soul realm paragons of Tianhuang mainland and establish good karma with many sections. The only thing Chiguramon needs to do is to be fair. Ask yourself honestly, is there any fairness in what you've done?" Arikatsuki Michinoku trembled and was rendered speechless. Shengguanzi continued, "You sacrificed your disciple to marry a cultivator of Chaos Essence sect to obtain their support. To think that you can do something like that. You've truly given Chiguramon face. Also." Shengguanzi pointed at Su Zimo and shouted, "I don't care if this child is a cultivator or a fiend demon. Chiguramon is indebted to him, so Chiguramon can't lay a hand on him. But what are you doing?" I only wanted him to stay in the sect as a guest." Arikatsuki Michinoku's voice trembled with fear. "Piak." Shengguanzi waved her hand and slapped Arikatsuki Michinoku heavily on the cheek, interrupting her. No matter what, Arikatsuki Michinoku's reputation in the cultivation world would be tarnished if she was taught a lesson in front of everyone. None of the cultivators present sympathized with her. The cultivators of Chaos Essence sect and Sword sect blamed her for not suppressing Su Zimo in time. Little Fatty, Ji Qingtian, and the others who were on Su Zimo's side would not pity her. Len Ro was the only one who could not bear it. She took half a step forward and raised her hand slightly, wanting to say something but hesitated. Shengguanzi shook her head. "How dare you play tricks in front of me? Seems like I was wrong about you back then." "Shengguan, calm down." Elder Gu said, "We're actually here because we have good news for you." Dao Lord Scarlet Star hurried forward and handed over a letter, saying softly, "This is personally written by a senior of 100 Refinement sect." As expected. Su Zimo lamented internally. As expected, this letter should have been written by Hakka Dojin. The two old men before him should have been invited by Hakka Dojin as well. To Shengguanzi. Shengguanzi received it casually and her gaze froze when she saw the line of words on it. This handwriting, Shengguanzi's palm trembled slightly as though she had thought of something and her mind was in turmoil. She hurriedly opened the letter and focused her gaze. The first line of words on the letter read, "Shengguan, I'm still alive and have returned." When she saw that, Shengguanzi's eyes welled up and her vision blurred. If not for the fact that there were too many cultivators present, she would have lost control of her emotions and burst into tears. Many cultivators naturally noticed Shengguanzi's emotional turmoil. The crowd could not imagine what was written in the letter that could cause a conjoint body mighty figure to lose control of her emotions. Is this for real? Shengguanzi turned to look at Elder Gu and Elder Gu, still not daring to be sure. The two old men nodded. Shengguanzi took a deep breath and calmed her mind. After reading the entire letter, she carefully put it away, as if this letter was something extremely precious. Shengguanzi turned to look at Su Zimo with a gentle gaze. She did not put on any airs or pressure of a conjoint body mighty figure and asked gently, "You're Su Zimo?" "I'm Su Zimo." "Greetings, senior." Su Zimo hurried forward and bowed. "Your master and I are, yes, good friends. You don't have to be so polite. Shangguanzi smiled gently and waved her sleeves gently, helping Su Zimo up. Shangguanzi said, I heard about what happened in Myriad Phenomenon City from your master. Thank you for helping to save countless paragons and protect the final dignity of the human race. The cultivators were moved. This was a conjoint body mighty figure. They could not even be seen normally. But now, this conjoint body mighty figure was thanking a Jining Jinjuan. It was clear that the battle 100 years ago was absolutely true. Up till now, no one has dared to question your title as the #1 perfected lord. Shangguanzi said, you're the only one qualified to drink this supreme-grade mystic tea. With that said, Shangguanzi waved her hand gently and the only remaining tender leaf at the top of the mystic tea tree landed in the teacup. Thereafter, she poured in boiling spirit spring water and a steaming cup of fragrant tea was brewed. Lan Yue, serve the tea. Shangguanzi placed the teacup in Arikatsuki Michinoku's palm and said indifferently. Arikatsuki Michinoku's expression was extremely terrible. As a Chiguramon patriarch, she had to serve tea to a Jining Jinjuan. This was going to be a humiliation that she would never be able to erase for the rest of her life. The crowd was envious. Who could enjoy the treatment of a conjoint body mighty figure brewing tea and being served tea by a sect master? Arikatsuki Michinoku did not dare to disobey and received the teacup respectfully with both hands. She walked to Su Zimo expressionlessly and grit her teeth. Please. Thank you, Patriarch. Su Zimo smiled gently and received the teacup, downing it in a single gulp. The moment Su Zimo raised his head to drink the tea, a vicious glint flashed through the depths of Arikatsuki Michinoku's eyes before disappearing quickly. Chapter 970. There was no bitterness when the supreme-grade mystic tea entered his stomach. Instead, it carried a faint sweetness and turned into a warm current that flowed through his limbs and bones, fusing into his body. Finally, the tea condensed into a ball of spirit chi that surged into his spirit platform and broke through his consciousness, wrapping around Su Zimo's 2 essence spirits. Su Zimo closed his eyes instinctively and sat on the ground. The ball of spirit chi nourished the 2 essence spirits, cleansing the impurities in the black-haired essence spirit and refining the yin chi in the scarlet-haired yin spirit. Under the nourishment of the ball of spirit chi, the 2 essence spirits became increasingly condensed and pure, advancing towards the void reversion realm. Before leaving Thousand Demon Valley, Su Zimo had already cultivated his 2 essence spirits to the peak of late-stage nascent soul realm with the help of the 1000-year blood sea. Now that he had fought against many nascent soul paragons, he was on the verge of breaking through. With the help of the supreme-grade mystic tea, there were almost no obstacles and he broke through in less than half an incense's time. Everything happened naturally. Ah! Su Zimo's eyes opened and shone with a divine light. He reared his head and howled into the skies, his aura lasting for a long time. Perfected nascent soul. In 100 years, he had already cultivated from the Jin Dan realm to perfected nascent soul realm. That speed was terrifying. Throughout history, there were not many cultivators who could achieve such a cultivation speed. Jining Jinjuan was more than 140 years old. Although he did not look young, Su Zimo was equivalent to a teenager if he was converted to a mortal's lifespan of 100 years. The eyes of many cultivators were filled with shock. None of them knew that Su Zimo was cultivating 2 essence spirits at the same time and was even using his essence spirit to nurture the creation Qinglian. Otherwise, he might have already entered the void reversion realm by now. After cultivating his essence spirit to perfected nascent soul, Su Zimo could clearly sense that the dermic powers he could control had increased and become denser. Furthermore, he could already vaguely sense the barrier to the void reversion realm. The perfected nascent soul realm was only a step away from the void reversion realm. However, that step stumped countless cultivators. In fact, some cultivators were unable to break through that barrier and reach the void reversion realm in their entire lives. Breaking through to the next realm was the most difficult. It would be normal for him to cultivate for hundreds of years. For example, perfected Lord Panglan, who just now had perished in the hands of Su Zimo, had only taken half a step forward after cultivating for hundreds of years and had yet to truly break through to the void reversion realm. Congratulations. Shen Guanzi smiled. Thank you, senior. Su Zimo quickly got up and bowed. Shen Guanzi nodded and turned to look at Arikatsuki Michinoku. She said indifferently, Lan Yue, you can't absolve yourself from the blame for this 1,000-crane tea party. Your sin is unforgivable. Arikatsuki Michinoku's heart sank. Shen Guanzi's tone was extremely heavy. It could be seen that she was truly enraged. This matter was difficult to resolve. Master, this disciple knows his mistake. Arikatsuki Michinoku knelt on the ground hurriedly and admitted his mistake loudly with a terrified expression. Shen Guanzi shook her head and said sternly, as the master of a sect, you're unjust and ungrateful. If I hadn't come out of seclusion in time this time round, I can't imagine how much trouble you would have caused and how much trouble you would have implicated the sect. Arikatsuki Michinoku sprawled on the ground and trembled slightly, not daring to speak. Lan Yue, from this day forth, you're no longer the patriarch of the Chiguramon. Shen Guanzi said slowly. Yes, master. Arikatsuki Michinoku did not dare to question and said softly with his head lowered. Shen Guanzi stood quietly for a moment and took a deep breath before saying in a deep voice, according to the rules of the sect, you've caused a huge disaster and your sins are unforgivable. You should be executed. Arikatsuki Michinoku was so frightened that he shuddered. Pausing for a moment, Shen Guanzi said, however, on account that you've followed me for many years, I'll cripple your cultivation today and expel you from the sect. You can be immortal in peace. The cultivators were moved. In just a few words, this high and mighty sect master who just now was reduced to a mortal in the blink of an eye. Everyone knew that the punishment was not severe at all. If Shen Guanzi had not come out of seclusion, Arikatsuki Michinoku would have attacked Dao Lord Scarlet Star and the other two today and detained Su Zimo. It was very likely that the Chiguramon would be doomed eternally. Master, I know my mistake. Arikatsuki Michinoku was truly frightened as he crawled to Shen Guanzi's feet and cried. Grandmaster, please show mercy. When she saw Arikatsuki Michinoku in such a state, Leng Ro could not bear it and knelt down to plead as well. No matter what, Arikatsuki Michinoku was her master after all. Shen Guanzi turned to Leng Ro and asked, you're still pleading for mercy for her despite how she treated you? Please show mercy, Grandmaster. Leng Ro pursed her lips and said. Shen Guanzi was silent for a moment before nodding. All right, I'll give you another chance. However, you can't escape punishment for what happened today. Bring Lan Yue to the law enforcement hall and punish her with 9 punishments. Thank you, master. Thank you for your mercy, master. Arikatsuki Michinoku kowtowed hurriedly as though he had been pardoned. Although she would be punished, she would at least be able to preserve her cultivation and have a chance to make a comeback. The two Dharma Daojun stood out and helped Arikatsuki Michinoku up, heading towards the depths of the Chiguramon. Shen Guanzi turned to look at Leng Ro and the coldness in her eyes dissipated significantly. Your name is Leng Ro, right? Come under my tutelage from now on. Leng Ro was stunned. Little Fatty beamed and nudged Leng Ro hurriedly, whispering, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and acknowledge me as your master. The crowd was envious. This was a massive opportunity. If a conjoint body mighty figure took in a disciple personally, not only would her strength increase, Leng Ro's status in the Chiguramon would also rise in the future. Leng Ro knelt down and kowtowed. Greetings, master. When he saw that, Su Zimo was happy for Leng Ro as well. Leng Ro had already done her best to plead for mercy for Arikatsuki Michinoku. Now that Senior Shengguan was willing to take her in as a disciple, it was naturally her opportunity and fortune. The tea party continued. Many cultivators fought for the ordinary mystic tea. However, compared to the shocking battle just now, the fight between the nascent soul paragons was much more ordinary. With a conjoint body mighty figure like Shang Guanzi holding down the fort, the tea party went smoothly and ended by nightfall. Some cultivators bade farewell and left that night. Some cultivators rested in the Chiguramon for the night. Everyone knew that today's battle was merely the beginning. The true storm was yet to come. Yi Tiancheng, perfected Lord Pang Lan and many void reversions of the immortal sex had died in the hands of Su Zimo. The immortal sex would definitely not let this matter rest. Furthermore, Su Zimo had returned domineeringly and killed Yi Tiancheng, declaring war on Diyin. How would Diyin react? If a few immortal sects attacked at the same time, would 100 Refinement sect be able to protect Su Zimo? Furthermore, at the end of the 1,000 Crane Tea Party, a letter attracted a conjoint body mighty figure of the Chiguramon and almost reversed the entire situation, even causing a patriarch to fall from his pedestal. Just who wrote this letter? Chapter 971. After the tea party ended, everyone dispersed. Dao Lord Scarlet Star said to Su Zimo, "Uncle Master, Grandmaster wants you to return as soon as possible." Yes, Su Zimo nodded. Hakka Dojin made such arrangements and instructions because he was worried about his safety after causing such a huge commotion here. Su Zimo said, "Let's head back tonight then." Little Fatty, Leng Ro, and the others were naturally reluctant to part with Su Zimo after not seeing him for 100 years. After the tea party, they had nothing to do and followed Su Zimo to 100 Refinement sect. Apart from them, there were also Shangguanzi, Elder Gu and Old Man Gu. Shangguanzi summoned a white cloud casually and led everyone towards 100 Refinement sect at full speed. Dao Bing Yuding took almost half a day to bring everyone from 100 Refinement sect there. But now, a conjoint body mighty figure was leading many cultivators at full speed and arrived at 100 Refinement sect in less than 10 minutes. That speed was truly frightening. When the cultivators of 100 Refinement sect returned to the sect, they were all excited and wanted nothing more than to spread everything that happened at the 1,000 Crane Tea Party to the entire sect. Su Zimo brought Leng Ro and the others back to his cave abode. Since they had not seen each other for 100 years, they naturally had a lot to say. It was probably even more so for Shangguanzi, Elder Gu, and the other two since they had not seen Hakka Dojin for 5,000 years. After Shangguanzi and the others arrived at 100 Refinement sect, they headed straight for the 100 Refinement Great Hall with excited expressions. Su Zimo, Leng Ro, Little Fatty, and the others chatted the entire night and recounted what happened to them in the past 100 years. The laughter in the cave abode never stopped. Little Fatty jumped up and down excitedly the entire night. Everyone felt as though they had returned to the time when they were at Misty Peak. Morning. Su Zimo and the others did not sleep the entire night, but they were still energetic and in high spirits. Not long after, Dao Lord Scarlet Star came to visit and asked Su Zimo to head to the 100 Refinement's Great Hall because Hakka Dojin wanted to see him. Su Zimo did not hesitate and followed Dao Lord Scarlet Star to the main hall. Dao Lord Scarlet Star stood guard outside and only Su Zimo walked in alone. In the depths of the hall, it was stuffy and hot. After passing through a long corridor, they arrived at the innermost part of the room. Everything before them suddenly opened up. This was a domed secret room with a very large area. In the secret chamber, a ball of scorching flame was constantly spewing out from the ground to the left. On the right, there was a huge spiritual pond. Countless spiritual materials and plants rose and fell within it. Celestial spirit flower, azure sun branch, dragon phoenix lotus, xianyuan grass, 10,000-year blood ginseng, it was full of vitality and spiritual energy. Dense mist rose and exuded a dense and majestic vitality. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. Normally, it was rare to see even a single stalk of those spirit herbs and divine herbs. Only a sect with 100 Refinement sect's foundation and strength could gather so many. Hakka Dojin's essence spirit stood in midair not far away. I've heard about what happened at the tea party. As for what happens next, I'll handle it, You don't have to worry. Haka Dojin consoled Suzimo. The reason why I called you here today is to let you watch the entire process of bone forging body forging. Haka Dojin continued, back then, I only explained it to you. I'm sure there are many things that you might not understand. Today, I'll demonstrate it once. You have to remember every single detail. Suzimo nodded. Actually, his current body could be said to be perfect and was unprecedented. He cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and fused with the bloodline of dragons. His blood chi was terrifying. Even the physique and bloodline of the primordial 9 races could not compare to him. In Suzimo's opinion, he would not change his body at all. In fact, there was no need for him to watch the bone forging body. However, he had a feeling that Haka Dojin seemed to be implying something and focused his attention. This flame is the earth core fire. It's extremely hot and can melt many universal treasures. Haka Dojin explained to Suzimo as he demonstrated. Let's first melt and fuse the 9 fire elemental universal treasures together. Haka Dojin placed the weapon tripod above the earth core fire and placed the top-tier universal treasures such as the Scarlet Phoenix Blood Gold, Sun Stone, Lava Crystal, Thousand Demon Blood Stone, Nirvana Stone and others into the weapon tripod to melt them slowly. Thereafter, he used the solution within to forge the bones required for his body. It was a rather complicated and long process. Dao Lord Extreme Fire was extremely patient as he explained and hammered at the same time, explaining every single detail. Suzimo memorized everything. It took a total of 3 days for a skeleton to be completed. Every section of the skeleton had natural fire elemental patterns on them. They were completely natural and emitted a scorching heat. This skeleton could be said to be perfect. Every part of it was exquisitely carved jade bracelets. It was a work of uncanny craftsmanship that made people sigh in admiration. With the help of this skeleton, the power of his fire spells would definitely increase. After completing bone forging, Haka Dojin had consumed a great deal of energy. As he rested, he continued to explain to Suzimo. Next is the body forging process. Haka Dojin pointed at the spiritual pool not far away and said, this spiritual pool contains all the spiritual herbs and divine medicines that can provide life essence. Nourish your bloodline with this skeleton, and nurture your internal organs in this spiritual pool. Nurture the other organs in your body. This process is quite long, even longer than the time needed to forge bones. Haka Dojin took a deep breath and pointed to a brand new storage bag at the side. Keep this storage bag. Suzimo picked up the storage bag and took a look. He could not help but be shocked. The storage bag contained a large number of spirit herbs and divine medicines that were exactly the same as the ones in the spiritual pool. Not only that, there were even some top-grade bone forging materials and ores in the storage bag. Suzimo looked at Haka Dojin. This gift was way too precious. Even if he sold all the treasures in Misty Peak, they would not be as valuable as this small storage bag. When 100 Refinement Sect was collecting natural treasures, spirit herbs and divine medicines, I specially instructed them to collect 2 sets. Haka Dojin said meaningfully, accept it. You might need it in the future. Suzimo nodded and accepted the storage bag. Alright, now that bone forging is over, it's body tempering. Haka Dojin's essence spirit flashed and arrived at the glabella of the skeleton. He controlled the skeleton to enter the spiritual pool and assume a lotus position. Swoosh! An endless stream of life essence surged into the scarlet skeleton. At the same time, Haka Dojin used his essence spirit to control dermic powers and vibrate the skeleton continuously. Splash! The sound of bone marrow flowing could be heard from within the skeleton. Marrow cleansing and blood swapping. Suzimo was extremely familiar with this scene. There was a marrow cleansing section in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. He used the sound of tigers and leopards to cleanse the marrow to create a new bloodline and ultimately achieve the goal of blood swapping. Gradually, pink flesh appeared on the scarlet skeleton. It was as thin as a cicada's wings and was almost transparent. As time passed by, the flesh on the skeleton gradually filled up. Haka Adojin's silhouette gradually became clearer as well. In the secret chamber, there was silence. At that moment, the cultivation world of the Middle Continent was in an uproar as news after news spread one after another, causing a huge uproar. Chapter 972. The number one of the phenomenon ranking 100 years ago, Su Zimo, has returned in a domineering manner. At the 1000 Crane Tea Party, Su Zimo killed Yi Tiancheng and perfected Lord Pang Lan and defeated many nascent soul paragons. Even void reversions were no match for him and he was conferred as the number one perfected lord. After not seeing him for 100 years, this monster incarnate is even more terrifying than before. He even declared war on Diin at the tea party. Only one of the Chaos Essence twin paragons is left. The news spread rapidly in the cultivation world of the Middle Continent and caused a huge commotion. At that moment, almost all the cultivators and major sects and factions in the Middle Continent were discussing this matter. This person has been in seclusion for 100 years. Now that he has returned, his personality hasn't changed at all. The moment he appeared, he offended so many factions. I don't think he'll live for long. Not necessarily. I heard that 100 Refinement sect has made it clear that they want to protect this person. Fufu, 100 Refinement sect is declining day by day and can't even protect themselves. Who else can they protect? That's right. If a few super sects exert pressure at the same time, 100 Refinement sect will have to submit as well. Otherwise, their 100 Refinement sect might suffer a calamity. Not necessarily. I've heard some news. I heard that a Dharma characteristic expert of 100 Refinement sect who has been missing for thousands of years has returned and is reconstructing his body. What's the use of a Dharma characteristic expert for a matter that concerns the survival of a sect? Someone scoffed in disdain. That Dharma characteristic expert is extraordinary. I heard that he's Haka Adojin from 5,000 years ago. Who's Haka Adojin? I've never heard of him. It's him. The number one of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. He's still alive. News of what happened at the 1000 Crane Tea Party spread and it was not difficult to deduce the truth if some of the details were remembered. After all, there were very few people who could invite the two elders of Ancient Array sect and Elixir Yang sect who had been in seclusion for thousands of years as well as a conjoint body mighty figure of Chigurumon with a single letter. At the same time, Sword sect. Immortal Sword Dao residence. After Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift's clones were destroyed in Thousand Demon Valley, they stayed here for more than 3 months and verified their Dao techniques with Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Initially, the two of them was prepared to leave. However, news after news reached the Sword sect, and their journey was temporarily put on hold. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said slowly with a cold expression, if Haka Dojin isn't dead, he should be the one who fought against me in Thousand Demon Valley. No wonder. Dao Lord Cloud Rain said, back when your essence spirits were fighting, that person released the essence spirit secret skill of the soaring serpent flame god. Something's not right. Fairy Snowflake shook her head and said, I heard that Haka Dojin is rebuilding his body. The person we saw that day still had his flesh and blood. It couldn't be him. It doesn't make sense here. That would explain it if there was another person present. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's eyes flickered as he said faintly. What do you mean? Fairy Snowflake and Immortal Sword looked at Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Su Zimo. Dao Lord Immortal Sword spat out a name from between his teeth. Lady Snowflake and Lady Snowflake frowned slightly. The number one perfected lord who is the most famous during this period of time? Dao Lord Cloud Rain frowned. There's indeed a coincidence between that lad's return and extreme fires. However, what has he got to do with this matter? Dao Lord Immortal Sword narrowed his eyes and said sternly, previously, according to the news from the disciples of Sword Sect, that monster incarnate Su Zimo returned and cultivated an extremely terrifying sword art. Even top paragons of Sword Sect like Jian Wuzong and Heng Qiuyu were nearly killed by that sword art. When Dao Lord Immortal Sword saw that the two of them were still confused, he pondered for a moment before saying in a deep voice, "Now that things have come to this, there are some things that I won't hide anymore. Back then, the treasure that I asked the two of you to help me fight for in Thousand Demon Valley was actually a sword art. It's one of the 3 ancient sword arts." Ah! Fairy Snowflake and Dao Lord Cloud Rain's expressions changed slightly as they exclaimed. The 3 ancient sword arts were way too famous. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said hatefully, "As I expected, that sword art should have landed in the hands of Su Zimo." "I've got it," Dao Lord Cloud Rain was enlightened. "You're saying that the one who fought against us in Thousand Demon Valley back then was actually Su Zimo's body and Hakka Dojin's essence spirit." "That's right," Dao Lord Immortal Sword nodded. "My demon sealing diagram was not suppressed by that person's dermic powers. Instead, it was stunned by the aura of Su Zimo's divine phoenix bone. That's why I was able to obtain it so easily. That junior sure is gutsy." Dao Lord Immortal Sword's expression was cold and he did not conceal the killing intent in his eyes. His clone was destroyed and he returned empty-handed. He even lost quite a number of treasures to invite Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowflake. All the resentment that he had accumulated over the past few days was vented on Su Zimo. "Why? Are you prepared to settle scores with that lad?" Dao Lord Cloud Rain raised his brow and asked with a fake smile. Dao Lord Immortal Sword harumphed and said coldly, "I've already said that if I find out that person's identity, I'll kill him even if he's Acheron." "You've got to move quickly then," Dao Lord Cloud Rain smiled gently. "After the 1,000 Crane Tea Party this time round, that lad has caused a huge disaster. Yi Tiancheng, Perfected Lord Panglan and many other void reversions are dead. Those immortal sects will definitely make a move. Hakka Dojin. 100 Refinement Sect." Dao Lord Immortal Sword sneered, "I'll pay a visit personally and see what 100 Refinement Sect's attitude is. I don't believe that 100 Refinement Sect can withstand the pressure of so many super sects. Brother Cloud Rain, why don't you travel with me?" Dao Lord Immortal Sword turned and asked with a sincere expression. Dao Lord Cloud Rain knew that Dao Lord Immortal Sword was only inviting him to make use of his influence. However, he did not reject it. He was not interested in Su Zimo. However, after 5,000 years, he wanted to see how Hakka Dojin, the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking who suppressed him back then, was doing now. "Snowflake, if you have nothing on, why don't you come with us?" Dao Lord Immortal Sword invited Fairy Snowflake again. "Sure," Fairy Snowflake nodded and said indifferently, "However, I'm not going this time round to help you. I'm just curious about Su Zimo and Hakka Dojin. There's no time to lose. Let's move out now." Dao Lord Immortal Sword soared into the air and headed out of the cave abode. The moment he arrived outside the cave abode, a sword beam sped over from afar and descended before Dao Lord Immortal Sword. It was a woman with a fluttering white dress and a sword on her back. She was extremely beautiful and had a heroic aura. It was the Dharma characteristic expert of Sword Sect, Qin Pianran. "Senior brother, Dao Bing Han Jian of our sect died at the 1,000 Crane Tea Party. Master wants me to head to 100 Refinement Sect and demand the true culprit." As Qin Pianran spoke, she looked at Fairy Snowflake with some hostility in her eyes. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said indifferently, "We're about to go together. You should come as well." The 4 of them were speechless. They summoned their dermic weapons and sped into the distance, disappearing from the skies above Sword Sect before long. At the same time, Dharma Daojun of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Chaos Essence Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace appeared and rushed towards 100 Refinement Sect with a murderous aura. The other sects and factions were moving as well. A storm was brewing in the Middle Continent. Chapter 973. 100 Refinements Sect. Haka Adojin's bone-tempering body was already nearing the end and there was no longer any danger. The only thing he had to do was wait. Su Zimo retreated silently. Outside the hall, not only were Tao Lord Scarlet Star and the other 100 Refinement Sect cultivators guarding, Elder Gu had even set up an array formation personally to prevent any unforeseen events. Su Zimo looked over although he could not see anything. However, he could vaguely sense that there were other experts in the corners of the hall. In fact, there might even be conjoint body mighty figures guarding in secret. Everyone was waiting for Haka Dojin's rebirth. Actually, Su Zimo was already prepared to leave after killing a few people at the 1,000 Crane Tea Party. He did not want to implicate 100 Refinement Sect. It was the same as before when he did not return to Misty Peak because he did not want to implicate Misty Peak. However, Haka Dojin still kept him. Patriarch, Tao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain is here to visit. Before long, 100 Refinement Sect cultivator sent a message. Let him rest in the front hall. Tao Lord White Flames was already prepared and instructed. Tyrant Emperor Mountain was one of the 108 upper sects and its status in the cultivation world was even lower than the 4 unorthodox groups. As the Patriarch of 100 Refinement Sect, he naturally would not receive them personally. Fufu, seems like some upper sects can't sit still and want to take advantage of the situation. Tao Lord Scarlet Star sneered. A moment later, another 100 Refinement Sect cultivator sped over and said in a deep voice, Patriarch, Tao Lord Heaven Sea of 5 Elements Sect is here to visit. Yes, arrange for them to be in the front hall. Tao Lord White Flames nodded. Before long, another 100 Refinement Sect cultivator sent a message. Patriarch, Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace is here to visit. Tao Lord White Flames, Tao Lord Scarlet Star and the others were shocked. It was finally here. Dharma Dao Jun of the 9 immortal sects had appeared with ill intentions. Patriarch, Tao Lord Breaking Skies of Heavenly Dipper Sect is here to visit. Patriarch, Tao Lord Cloud Son of Chaos Essence Sect is here. Monk Kong Wen of the Formless Temple is here to visit. Monk Liao Ming of Sanskrit Temple pays a visit. As the master of a sect, Tao Lord White Flames was able to maintain his composure when he heard about the arrival of super sects one after another. Patriarch, Tao Lord Immortal Sword, Fairy Snowdrift, and Tao Lord Cloud Rain have come together. Another piece of news came. Finally, the look on Tao Lord White Flame's face changed. Although the Dharma Dao Jun from before were also very famous, compared to these three, they were far inferior. Tao Lord Cloud Rain, second on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. Fairy Snowflake, number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking 2,000 years ago. Tao Lord Immortal Sword, number 1 of the previous Dharma characteristic ranking. Furthermore, the three of them were titular disciples of Cloud Rain Sect, Snowdrift Valley, and Sword Sect respectively. It's easy to explain why Tao Lord Immortal Sword is here. But why are Fairy Snowdrift and Tao Lord Cloud Rain here? Tao Lord Scarlet Star frowned. Tao Lord White Flames turned to everyone and cupped his fists. I've got to go deal with it. Everyone, please wait here. Don't show yourself first. Wait for news from Granduncle Master Extreme Fire. Before Tao Lord White Flames left, he reminded Su Zimo. I'll go with you too. With that, Tao Lord Scarlet Star sped away with Tao Lord White Flames. Front Hall. The hall was extremely spacious and was made purely of metal. It had a metallic texture and looked indestructible and unshakable. There were already many cultivators seated in the hall. Every single one of them had powerful auras and a wanton might. The disciples of 100 Refinement Sect who came to serve tea were all terrified, afraid of offending these important figures. Nangong Ling, Yuhan Yun and Ru Xian were in the hall. The Dharma Dao Jun who came had already taken their seats. Tao Lord Immortal Sword, Fairy Snowdrift and Tao Lord Cloud Rain sat at the highest positions. Although Cloud Rain Sect was a fiend sect, none of the Dharma Daojun present dared to provoke Tao Lord Cloud Rain. In the cultivation world, strength reigns supreme. Since many Dharma Daojun were gathered here, there was naturally no lack of pleasantries. Of course, everyone knew why they were here. After exchanging pleasantries, they fell silent. All of them had dark and angry expressions. The atmosphere in the hall was a little tense. Piak. Suddenly, Tao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain slammed his heavy palm on the metal table with a loud bang. Ru Xian, who had just served tea, was shocked and failed to hold the teacup. With a crack, it fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. What are you guys doing, 100 Refinement Sect? Tao Lord Red Tiger was born with a stocky build and tempered his body year-round. He looked extremely tall and muscular with eyes that resembled a pair of copper bells. He glared at Ru Xian beside him and roared with a ferocious aura. There are so many Dharma Daojun here to visit, and 100 Refinement Sect only sent a few brats to deal with us. Is this how 100 Refinement Sect treats its guests? Tao Lord Red Tiger's voice was like a bell, causing Ru Xian's ears to buzz, and she was already feeling dizzy. Nangong Ling and Yu Hanyan endured their discomfort and hurried forward to pull Ru Xian back. Don't you find it embarrassing to bully juniors? A cold laugh sounded from outside as Tao Lord Scarlet Star walked in. When he saw that his disciple was bullied by the Dharma Daojun, he was naturally enraged and his tone was merciless. Hee, if that wasn't the case, who knows how long you guys from 100 Refinement Sect would have to hide. Tao Lord Red Tiger chuckled. Tao Lord Heaven Sea of 5 Elements Sect said in an eccentric manner as well, that's right. If 100 Refinement Sect hides, there's nothing we can do. Heaven Sea, Red Tiger, this is 100 Refinement Sect. Watch your words. Tao Lord White Flames said coldly. How impressive, Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace said slowly with a cold glint in his eyes, no wonder 100 Refinement Sect dares to risk universal condemnation and take in a fiend demon. I wonder what you're talking about, fellow Taoist Fire Cloud. Tao Lord White Flames said indifferently. Stop pretending. Tao Lord Breaking Skies of Heavenly Dipper Sect stood up slowly. White Flames, hand over Su Zimo, and 100 Refinement Sect might be able to retain its position as one of the 4 unorthodox groups. Otherwise, 100 Refinement Sect will be destroyed. Amitba, Monk Kongwon of Formless Monastery pressed his palms together and lowered his gaze, saying softly, Patron White Flames, we Buddhists have never been willing to fight with others. However, Su Zimo is definitely not a good person. He massacred the paragons of the human race wantonly and even took the utmost treasure of the Buddhist monasteries, Creation Qinglian, for his own. He deserves to die. Tao Lord White Flame sneered, Monk Kongwon, aren't you being unreasonable? In Myriad Phenomenon City, Su Zimo obtained the recognition of the human emperor and fairy Ling Long. He resolved the catastrophe of the paragons single-handedly and is definitely a human. Furthermore, Creation Qinglian is a treasure given to him by Enigma Palace. What has it got to do with the Buddhist monasteries? White Flames, right then, Tao Lord Immortal Sword suddenly spoke. Instantly, the hall fell silent. No one dared to underestimate this Tao Lord, who was the number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking. Hand him over. 100 Refinement Sect won't be able to protect him. Tao Lord Immortal Sword said slowly, in other words, I'm going to barge into 100 Refinement Sect right now to take him away. Who dares to stop me? Who can stop me? Although his words were extremely domineering, no one dared to question them. Given Tao Lord Immortal Sword's combat strength, he could most likely fight against conjoint body mighty figures. If Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift were to join forces with him, his combat strength would be terrifying, and even if 100 Refinement Sect could withstand it, they would be severely injured. Furthermore, Tao Lord Immortal Sword was the titular disciple of Sword Sect and the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking. 100 Refinement Sect would not dare to kill him. If you dare barge into 100 Refinement Sect, I'll kill you. At this moment, a cold voice came from outside the door. It was loud and clear. Chapter 974. There were not many cultivators in the cultivation world who dared to speak to Tao Lord Immortal Sword in that tone. The number one of the Dharma characteristic ranking, titular disciple. That title meant that Tao Lord Immortal Sword was an existence that could sweep through those of the same cultivation realm and fight against ordinary conjoint body mighty figures. Above conjoint body mighty figures were Mahayana patriarchs. Mahayana realm experts would almost never show themselves in Tianhuang mainland unless something major happened. Therefore, even if it was conjoint body mighty figures, not many people would dare to claim that they could kill Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Furthermore, he was backed by Sword Sect. Throughout history, some immortal sects were destroyed, some rose and some declined. However, Sword Sect stood tall and was ranked in the top 3 of the immortal sects. In other words, who would dare to kill him? Tao Lord Immortal Sword's gaze turned cold. Everyone turned to look. Outside the hall, 2 people strode in. The leader was a slender, fiery red Taoist robe that seemed to be burning with flames. His black hair draped over his shoulders and he had 3 strands of beard. His face was rosy and his eyes were bright as he emitted a violent and scorching aura. After that person entered the hall, the temperature of the entire hall rose rapidly. There were more than 10 Dharma Daojun seated in the hall with mixed auras and unbridled might. However, after this person entered, the mixed auras and the might of many Tao Lords seemed to be burned into nothingness instantly. The aura that this person exuded was even more domineering than his words. Extreme fire, you're indeed still alive. Tao Lord Cloud Rain looked at the person and said slowly with bright eyes. The person smiled indifferently and surveyed his surroundings, saying slowly, I'm Extreme Fire. Everyone, it must have been a long journey. Hakka Dojin. All the cultivators present were shocked and they heard that name. Gazes landed on Hakka Dojin one after another, sizing up this expert from 5,000 years ago. Tao Lord Immortal Sword looked at Hakka Dojin expressionlessly and sword lights seemed to flash in his eyes before disappearing quickly. Grand Master. Tao Lord Scarlet Star was delighted and excited when he saw Hakka Dojin return unscathed after reconstructing his body. The Hakka Dojin in front of him was exactly the same as the Grand Master in his memory. 5,000 years had passed, but time seemed to have left no trace on Hakka Dojin's body. Moreover, Hakka Dojin looked even scarier than he was 5,000 years ago. Everyone's gaze turned to the cultivator behind Hakka Dojin. It was a Jining Jinjuan. He wore a green robe and had a delicate appearance. His eyes were clear, and he had one hand behind his back. He looked like a weak scholar. For some inexplicable reason, this scholar gave off a strange feeling to everyone present. Everyone took a few more glances at him before looking back at Hakka Dojin. Hakka Dojin led the delicate scholar behind him through the hall and walked towards the main seat. He said in a seemingly casual manner, everyone, you've come at the right time. Let me introduce you to my disciple, Su Zimo. Dharma Daojuan's expression changed. Su Zimo. From a certain perspective, this name was even more shocking to the many Tao Lords present. He was the number 1 of the phenomenon ranking 100 years ago. He defeated Di'in in Myriad Phenomenon City and massacred 2 foreign races. He was invincible among his peers. After 100 years of hibernation, he returned domineeringly and killed Yi Tiancheng, perfected Lord Pang Lan and many other paragons. Even void reversions were not his match and he was conferred as the number 1 perfected lord at the 1,000 Crane Tea Party. This person's rise was way too fast. Nobody knew what level this person would reach in another 100 years. If Hakka Dojin had not said it personally, none of the cultivators present would have imagined that this delicate scholar before them was the infamous number 1 perfected lord. Was this scholar a demon? The gazes of the Tao Lords landed on Su Zimo once more as they scanned him. Everyone frowned slightly. They could not sense any aura of demons from Su Zimo. Or rather, even Dharma Daojun who was present could not see through Su Zimo. Of course, the reason why the Tao Lords were shocked was not because they were afraid of Su Zimo's strength. It was because in their eyes, Su Zimo was a massive treasure trove. In name, many immortal sects were here to seek revenge under the banner of slaying demons and fiends. However, in reality, the Tao Lords were more concerned about how to split the treasures on Su Zimo. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was concerned about the heaven-slaying sword art. The two monks of the Buddhist monasteries were concerned about Qinglian and lost secret skills such as the Daming True Sutra. Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace wanted to snatch Su Zimo's Purple Thunder Manual. There was also the legendary Divine Phoenix Bone. You're Su Zimo. Tao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain grinned and suddenly attacked without warning, roaring, "If you dare to cripple a paragon of Tyrant Emperor Mountain, I'll cripple you." Among the Dharma Daojun present, only Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Extreme Fire were experts of the same generation. The others did not have a strong impression of Hakka Dojin and were not afraid of him either. Su Zimo had only disappeared for 100 years and countless paragons of the younger generation were already looking down on him and doubting him. Furthermore, Hakka Dojin had been missing for 5,000 years. Of course, the Dharma Daojun present were all monsters that had cultivated for thousands of years, none of them were fools. Although Tao Lord Red Tiger seemed reckless and ignored Hakka Dojin, in reality, his actions were also to test Hakka Dojin's attitude. If Hakka Dojin's attitude was firm and decisive, he would be able to test Hakka Dojin's strength with a single clash. Swoosh! Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist carried a suffocating domineering power as dermic powers surged and arrived with a bang. Hakka Dojin glanced sideways and two balls of flames seemed to blaze in his eyes. Hakka Dojin paused in his tracks and flicked his sleeves, channeling boundless dermic powers towards Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist. Boom! When Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist collided with the seemingly soft Taoist robes, a deafening bang burst forth. Tao Lord Red Tiger's expression changed. That simple collision was enough to test that Hakka Dojin's strength was far above his. Fufu, Tao Lord, you truly live up to your reputation. Tao Lord Red Tiger let out a dry laugh and was about to leave. You still want to leave? Hakka Dojin sneered. Suddenly, a gigantic palm reached out from beneath his wide sleeves and gripped Tao Lord Red Tiger's fist. Tao Lord Red Tiger's heart sank. He realized that he could no longer escape. Tyrant Emperor Mountain specialized in body tempering. However, when his fist was gripped by Hakka Dojin's palm, he felt a bone-deep pain. It was as though his fist would be crushed by Hakka Dojin the next moment. Instantly, a layer of sweat appeared on Tao Lord Red Tiger's forehead. Tao Lord, please have mercy, ah. Just as Tao Lord Red Tiger was about to admit defeat, he saw another scene. His pupils constricted and he let out a tragic cry. A scarlet flame appeared in Hakka Dojin's palm and burned his fist to ashes. The flame was incomparably terrifying and was spreading along his arm towards his body. Chapter 975. Tao Lord Red Tiger released his aura and channeled his dermic powers. However, he could not extinguish the flames on his arm no matter what. The crimson flame grew stronger and burned fiercely, as if it was going to engulf his entire body. Extreme fire, you! Tao Lord Red Tiger widened his blood-red eyes in rage. He didn't expect that Hakka Dojin would react so violently when he was just testing the waters. He had already lost one of his arms. He had yet to reach the conjoint body realm and could not regrow his limbs. A crippled arm had a huge impact on Tao Lord Red Tiger, who specialized in body tempering and melee combat. His combat strength was reduced by at least 30%. What was even more frightening was that the flame was still burning. Rumble. Tao Lord Red Tiger's body blurred. An illusory figure rushed out from behind him. Its body was huge, reaching 50 feet tall, and it instantly broke through the roof of the main hall. Its entire body exuded a domineering and powerful aura, and its every move could cause the heaven and earth to tremble. Cosmic form. The heaven and earth Dharma form was the Dharma Daojuan's most powerful technique. It was also because of this that this realm was called the Transcendence Realm. Generally speaking, cultivators would not use their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics unless it was absolutely necessary. Be it nascent soul or void reversion realm cultivators, they would release dharmic arts using dharmic arts and essence spirits to channel the power of heaven and earth. Once a cultivator stepped into the Dharma characteristic realm, their essence spirit would rise to a whole new level. They would be able to communicate with heaven and earth and merge their bodies with heaven and earth to achieve Dharma resonance. They would then be able to form a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Even after reaching the Dharma characteristic realm, the bodies of most cultivators were still incomparable to that of demons. However, a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could fight against demons in close combat. In essence, the cosmic form was also a type of spell. However, the existence of a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic allowed one to utilize the power of heaven and earth directly without the need for dharmic arts or dharmic arts. It was even more violent and direct. Of course, there were strong and weak heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. The powerful heaven and earth Dharma form could overturn rivers and seas with a single punch. A single stomp could cause mountains to crumble and the earth to crack. The larger the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the more heaven and earth powers it could mobilize, and the more powerful it would be. Under normal circumstances, being able to condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 50 feet tall was already considered outstanding. If he could condense a Dharma idol that was 6 feet tall, he would definitely be called a prodigy. The famous 10 feet 6 golden body of the Diamond Temple was a heaven and earth Dharma form that was 60 feet tall. If he could form a cosmic form that was 7 feet tall, he would be a peerless genius that only appeared once in 1,000 years. Who knew how many opportunities and great fortunes were required to create such a person? Once an 80 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma idol was condensed, one could be called a monster. Naturally, it would be easy for him to sweep through those of the same level. In history, the first place of the Dharma characteristic ranking had almost always had a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 80 feet tall. Of course, according to the old legends, the highest level of cosmic form was 90 feet. 9 was the extreme number. To be able to cultivate a 90-foot tall Dharma idol was something that only appeared once in 10,000 years. He could be called a peerless monster. Not only did it depend on the cultivator's bloodline, luck, talent, physique, or the cultivation of the sect, there were many other factors, including the environment of the entire cultivation world. In ancient times, in order to escape the fate of being enslaved, the human race rose against the trend. This was a glorious era that belonged to the human race. Under such circumstances, countless heaven's favorites emerged. Among them, there was no lack of existences who had cultivated to a height of 90 feet. Almost all of those existences who did not die in battle were conferred emperors. Without that environment, without the pressure of life and death and many powerful and terrifying enemies, it would be difficult for the human race to produce such peerless monster incarnates. Right now, it was already rather rare for Tao Lord Red Tiger of Tyrant Emperor Mountain to be able to condense a heaven and earth Dharma idol that was more than 50 feet tall. Its power was shocking as well. Its massive body smashed through the metal roof of the entire hall and countless fragments fell, causing the hall to be in chaos. In the hall, Nangong Ling and the other cultivators with lower cultivation retreated and hid at the side. Only the Tao Lords could maintain their composure. Everyone frowned slightly. To be able to force Tao Lord Red Tiger to this extent and even release his heaven and earth Dharma idol, it was clear how terrifying that scarlet flame was. Extinguish. After releasing his heaven and earth Dharma idol, the flames on Tao Lord Red Tiger's body were suppressed and flickered, showing signs of extinguishing. Humph. Haka Adojin harumphed coldly and tapped with his fingertip, releasing a red light that entered the flames. Swoosh. The flames shone brightly and burned the skies. The flames were so intense that they engulfed Tao Lord Red Tiger's heaven and earth Dharma idol and burned furiously. scarlet flames burst forth from the billowing smoke. Roar! The heaven and earth Dharma idol that was more than 50 feet tall struggled in the flames and waved its arms. However, it could not extinguish the flames on its body. Ah! Tao Lord Red Tiger could not escape either and was burned by the flames. His flesh and blood turned into ashes and his bones were burned red and almost transparent. Even his essence spirit could not escape from the raging flames. At that moment, his essence spirit was about to be burned into nothingness once it left his body. Extreme fire, you are ruthless. Tao Lord Red Tiger's hoarse voice sounded from the flames. According to his original plan, he would test the waters himself. Even if he was no match for the other party, he would just lower his head and admit defeat before retreating. However, he did not expect that Haka-Dojin would not give him the chance at all. Less than that, he did not expect Haka-Dojin to be so strong and possess such terrifying combat strength. Even his heaven and earth Dharma idol could not defend against the flames released by Haka-Dojin. All of the Tao Lords stared at the blazing light with various looks on their faces, but none of them said anything. For example, Tao Lord Breaking Skies of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace and the others did not have much of an impression of Haka-Dojin initially. However, after this exchange, everyone's impression of Haka-Dojin gradually became clearer. Domineering and decisive. No matter what, Tao Lord Red Tiger was a Tao Lord of Tyrant Emperor Mountain after all and was not a nobody. Now that he was killed by extreme fire, it proved one thing. Haka-Dojin wanted to protect Su Zimo. He did not hesitate to kill a Dharma Daojun and offend an upper sect like Tyrant Emperor Mountain. At the same time, not far from 100 Refinement Sect, cultivators with powerful auras stood in midair. They were all Dharma Daojun and were looking over. Among those cultivators, some were from one of the 108 upper sects, some were itinerant cultivators and some were from immortal sects like Soaring Feather Sect. When the Dharma Daojun saw the heaven and earth Dharma idol that was burning with flames and roaring in pain in the direction of 100 Refinement Sect, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. Seems like extreme fire has returned. From the looks of it, he's clearly not weaker than back then. Everyone, let's go. Since extreme fire has returned, all of us old friends have to congratulate him no matter what. The reason why the Dharma Daojun did not enter 100 Refinement Sect was because they were observing. If the rumors were true and Haka-Dojin did not die and return domineeringly, they would pay him a congratulatory visit. 5,000 years ago, Haka-Dojin was way too famous. Coupled with his movement technique as a weapon refinement grandmaster, his influence was even greater than that of many conjoint body mighty figures. If extreme fire did not return or if his methods were not as strong as before, they would not appear lest they incur the wrath of Chaos Essence Sect and the other immortal sections. In the distant horizon, a black-robed cultivator flew over with a cold expression. He carried a blood-red saber on his shoulder and was filled with killing intent. The person looked in the direction of 100 Refinement Sect and murmured softly, "Thankfully, I'm not too late." Chapter 976. 100 Refinement Sect, in the front hall. In less than 3 breaths, the 50 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was burned into nothingness and its dharmic powers dissipated. Without the support of the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, Tao Lord Red Tiger could not defend against the burning of the scarlet flames and was engulfed by the flames in the blink of an eye. Ah! 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 Tao Lord Red Tiger screamed repeatedly and his voice was inaudible towards the end. Right in front of everyone, a Dharma Daojun was burned to ashes just like that, not even his bones were left. Some of the Dharma Daojun who were initially eager to give it a try fell silent as well. In the hall, the only ones who could maintain their composure were the Dharma Daojun of the super sects. In a sense, this was the first time Su Zimo saw Haka-Dojin attack. The previous 2 times, Haka-Dojin was only an essence spirit without a physical body and could not release such dharmic arts. Su Zimo realized that Haka-Dojin's strength seemed to be even more terrifying than he had imagined. The 50 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could not defend against Hakka Dojin's dharmic art. After killing a Dharma Dao Jun, Hakka Dojin led Su Zimo past many Dao lords and sat down on the main seat, as though nothing had happened. Su Zimo followed behind him. Along the way, not a single Dharma Dao Jun dared to attack. Good, good, good. When Dao Lord Cloud Rain saw that, he clapped and cheered repeatedly, saying mockingly, as expected of Extreme Fire. You're still as impressive as back then. Hakka Dojin said indifferently, 5,000 years have passed and you're still the same. You haven't improved at all. Dao Lord Cloud Rain was not annoyed and said leisurely, Extreme Fire, 5,000 years have passed and you're still at the Dharma characteristic realm. You haven't improved either. Moreover, I heard that you even lost your physical body. Looks like you're not doing well. Hakka Dojin, although your physical body has recovered, how much of your combat strength can you recover? Back then, you were indeed a top-tier expert. Now? Heh heh. Dao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace chuckled coldly. Normally speaking, after losing one's original physical body, regardless of whether it was possession or a new Dharma characteristic physical body, it would be very difficult to achieve 100% compatibility with one's primordial spirit. Thus, one's combat strength would definitely decrease. However, Hakka Dojin had personally forged his bones and cast his body in order to avoid such a situation. Moreover, his choices were all top-notch spiritual materials. Now, this body had already resonated with his essence soul and the compatibility was almost 100%. As long as he continued cultivating for a period of time, his essence spirit and body would fuse perfectly. Hakka Dojin's gaze shifted and landed on Dao Lord Fire Cloud. It was as though two flames were bursting forth as he said slowly, if you want to know, you can give it a try. Dao Lord Fire Cloud's heart skipped a beat. He felt his heart skip a beat when he was glared at by Hakka Dojin and retracted his actions of getting up. He did not want to become the second Dao Lord Red Tiger. Hakka Dojin looked at Fairy Snowdrift and raised his brow, asking, why? Snowdrift Valley wants to interfere as well. It's a misunderstanding, Fairy Snowdrift smiled indifferently. I'm only here because of your reputation. Firstly, I want to see the Hakka Dojin from 5,000 years ago. Secondly, I want to see the #1 perfected lord of the current era. Fairy Snowdrift's intention was to remain neutral. With that said, her beautiful eyes shimmered as she looked towards Su Zimo who was behind Hakka Dojin. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression and did not bat an eyelid. Even though there were many Dharma Dao Jun present and their auras were terrifying, he was still able to remain calm. You live up to your reputation, Fairy Snowdrift smiled gently. No one knew if she was referring to Hakka Dojin or Su Zimo. Unknowingly, Hakka Dojin had already gained control of the entire situation. At that moment, Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the other two were the only ones in the hall who could ensure that their auras did not dissipate against Hakka Dojin's powerful aura. There was a hidden sharpness to Dao Lord Immortal Sword's body the entire time. Dao Lord Cloud Rain waved his folding fan gently and mist filled the air. Fairy Snowdrift's surroundings were cold as ice. For example, Dao Lord Fire Cloud and the others of Zephyr Thunder Palace were suppressed. Clang! 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 Dao Lord Immortal Sword tapped his fingers on the metal table slowly and let out the sound of metal clashing in a rhythmic manner. With each tap, the sharpness on his body would increase by a notch. After a few taps, the sharpness on Dao Lord Immortal Sword's body had already surged into the skies, slicing Hakka Dojin's aura into two. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said slowly, Extreme Fire, it's important to know one's limits. If you want to protect this lad, don't drag the entire 100 Refinement sect down with you. Why? You want to make a move in 100 Refinement sect as well? Hakka Dojin's gaze narrowed with killing intent. It's not just me, Dao Lord Immortal Sword stood up slowly like an unsheathed sword with a sharp edge as he said coldly, it's Dharma Dao Jun of our immortal sects who is here to ask for him. Are you going to hand him over or not? Patron Extreme Fire, because of a Fiend Demon, 100 Refinement Sect, Sword Sect, Chaos Essence Sect, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and our 2 monasteries are on bad terms. You have to consider carefully, Monk Kong Wen of Formless Monastery persuaded. Extreme Fire. Dao Lord Cloud Rain stood out as well with a faint smile. If you want to go against the bigger picture, you'll only bring destruction. Extreme Fire, hand him over. Hand him over. Dao Lord Fire Cloud, Dao Lord Breaking Skies and Dao Lord Cloud Sun stood out one after another. The 4 immortal sects and 2 monasteries were attacking at the same time. There was probably no faction in Tianhuang mainland that could withstand such pressure, let alone the 4 unorthodox groups. Send the order. Hakka Dojin stood up as well and said slowly expressionlessly, whoever dares to make a move in 100 Refinement Sect will be killed without mercy. How dare you? Dao Lord Fire Cloud's gaze turned cold as he grit his teeth. 100 Refinement Sect has already declined. If we die here, 100 Refinement Sect won't be able to bear the responsibility. Try moving and see if I dare to kill you. Hakka Dojin's gaze was scorching and the flames in his eyes seemed to be burning. Both sides were on the verge of breaking out into a huge battle. Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others did not dare to act rashly either. Hakka Dojin's methods and boldness were even stronger than they had imagined. Even the 4 immortal sects and 2 Buddhist monasteries could not suppress him. They were worried that if they attacked, Hakka Dojin would truly disregard everything and kill them. However, Hakka Dojin had reservations as well. Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others were different from Dao Lord Red Tiger. Dao Lord Red Tiger came from Tyrant Emperor Mountain, one of the upper sections. If he dared to make a move in 100 Refinement Sect, so be it. However, each of these people before him had a greater background than the other. If he really killed these people here, 100 Refinement Sect would probably be in trouble. Right then, the voice of 100 Refinement Sect disciple sounded from outside. Patriarch, Dao Lord Li Ling is here to visit. Many Dao Lords were shocked and they heard that voice. This was an itinerant cultivator who traveled alone. However, his combat strength was extremely terrifying and he was ranked 10th on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. That person isn't dead yet? Dao Lord Cloud Rain frowned. Ha ha ha, Extreme Fire, I heard that you're still alive. I'm here to visit you. A cultivator walked in from outside. He was tall and slender with long hair that draped over his shoulders. He was slovenly and had a lazy expression as he laughed. Patriarch, Dao Lord Essence Dragon is here to greet you. Patriarch, Dao Lord Blue Flame is here to greet you. Patriarch, Dao Lord Divine Moon of Soaring Feather Sect is here to greet you. Chapter 977. Soaring Feather Sect, one of the 9 immortal sects. Dao Lord Divine Moon was also a Dao Lord from thousands of years ago and made a name for himself early on. Extreme Fire, how have you been? The moment Dao Lord Divine Moon entered the hall, he cupped his fists and smiled at Hakka Dojin. At this point, the Dao Lords of the 6 major immortal sects of the Middle Continent were all present. Dharma Dao Jun, Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others who entered earlier could be ignored. But now, even Dao Lord Divine Moon of Soaring Feather Sect had come to congratulate Extreme Fire. Everyone had no choice but to re-evaluate 100 Refinement Sect status in the cultivation world. Or rather, they had to re-evaluate Hakka Dojin's status. All the Dao Lords had arrived to congratulate him. Everyone from 100 Refinement Sect was invigorated. Normally speaking, at least half of the weapons in the cultivation world came from 100 Refinement Sect. 20% of the remaining half came from the foundations of the various major sections. 20% came from ruins, cave abodes, secret realms, and inheritance grounds. The remaining 10% came from other weapon refinement sections. As the number 1 weapon refinement grandmaster of 100 Refinement Sect, Hakka Dojin's status and influence in the cultivation world was imaginable. There were very few Mahayana realm experts among the 4 unorthodox groups. That was because every cultivator had a limited amount of mental energy. If they had any accomplishments in unorthodox methods such as weapon refinement, their cultivation would definitely be delayed. In the history of 100 Refinement sect, Hakka Dojin was one of the few people who had reached the peak of weapon refinement and cultivation. He was also a monster incarnate that countless seniors of the sect had high hopes for and believed could enter the Mahayana realm. That was also the reason why Hakka Dojin's return caused the entire 100 Refinement sect to operate, and even conjoint body mighty figures were willing to obey him. Men, take a seat. When he saw his old friends come to congratulate him, a smile finally appeared on Hakka Dojin's face as he instructed. Dharma Daojun came to congratulate him one after another. It was a shocking scene that even Dao Lord Immortal Sword could not have such an impact. The expressions of Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others darkened. In this way, it was even more unrealistic for them to make a move. At least, with their status, it was almost impossible for them to get Su Zimo out of Hakka Dojin's hands. Right then, 100 Refinement sect cultivator walked in hurriedly with a bewildered expression. After hesitating for a moment, he said, Dao Lord Shura of the Fiend sects is outside. Dao Lord Immortal Sword and Hakka Dojin both frowned. The two of them looked at each other without saying a word. Neither party knew why the demon cult Shura came to visit them. Shura, what is he doing here? Dao Lord Cloud Rain frowned deeply. As a member of the demon sect, he had a relatively better understanding of the demon sect. Shura was the most terrifying monster in the evil cult in recent years. He was bloodthirsty, eccentric, and had no scruples when he did things. It was said that this person had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm a few decades ago. On Dao Lord Immortal Sword's side, apart from Dao Lord Cloud Rain who was from the Fiend sects, the other Dao Lords did not have much interaction with this generation's Shura. As for Hakka Dojin, he was an expert from 5,000 years ago and did not know Shura at all. Su Zimo was the only one whose heart skipped a beat as a strange glint flashed through his eyes. Shura? Could it be Yen Beichen? If it was Yen Beichen, there was a high chance that he was here to help him. Shura sect was in the Middle Continent and it was only logical for Shura to know about the Thousand Crane Tea Party. Just as Su Zimo was about to send a voice transmission, Hakka Dojin said slowly, invite him in. In Hakka Dojin's heart, no matter which side this person was on, he would be able to handle it. Not long after, a black-robed man walked in with a cold expression. His face was sharp and he wielded a long saber that was filled with blood chi. There were streaks of blood around the saber that resembled blood vessels. It was as though fresh blood was flowing within and the stench of blood filled the air. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. It was indeed Shura Yen Beichen. Just as he was about to speak, Yen Beichen's gaze swept past his eyes casually. His gaze was unfamiliar and did not pause at all, as though the two of them had never met before. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he did not take the initiative to greet him. Although he was puzzled, he believed that Yen Beichen's actions must have a deeper meaning. Shura, what are you doing here? Dao Lord Cloud Rain asked with a frown. If you can come, why can't I? Yen Beichen swept his gaze and asked indifferently. Dao Lord Cloud Rain's expression darkened as he harumphed and did not continue asking. You're a guest. Take a seat. Hakka Dojin waved his hand and said. 100 Refinement sect cultivator moved a chair in fear and placed it in front of Yen Beichen. With a terrified expression, he turned and left hurriedly. Yen Beichen did not thank him and sat down right away. The blood-colored saber in his hands was placed horizontally on his knees and his eyes were half closed, as though he was asleep. Nobody knew why he was here. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's gaze flickered as he suddenly said, Extreme fire, now that things have come to this, both of us will only suffer if we fight. I have a suggestion. Oh. Hakka Dojin raised his brow. The two of us did not have enough fun the previous time we fought. Why don't we make use of this opportunity to fight? Dao Lord Immortal Sword took the initiative to challenge. He said that to remind Haka-Dojin. After the battle at Thousand Demon Valley, he already knew that Su Zimo was the one who snatched the heaven-slaying sword art. Dao Lord Immortal Sword knew that the heaven-slaying sword art was with Su Zimo this time round and would definitely not return empty-handed. However, this was 100 Refinements sect. If both sides were to fight, he might not be able to gain an advantage. However, he was absolutely confident in his combat strength. If he could make use of this battle to suppress Haka-Dojin, he could use Haka-Dojin to exchange for Su Zimo. You want to fight me? Haka-Dojin laughed with flames burning in his eyes. Dao Lord Immortal Sword smiled gently and mocked, why? The number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago is already afraid? When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. It was only at this moment that he truly realized Haka-Dojin's status in the cultivation world 5,000 years ago. The number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking coupled with his status as a weapon refinement grandmaster, even conjoint body mighty figures could not compare to his influence. I think that works, Dao Lord Cloud Rain clapped his hands. 1 is the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago and the other is the number 1 of the current Dharma characteristic ranking. It's rare for us to meet. Why don't we fight and broaden our horizons? Grandmaster, there's no need for us to fight. That's right. You've just reconstructed your body and are definitely not familiar with controlling and sensing it. There's no need for you to take the risk. Dao Lord Scarlet Star and the others hurriedly sent voice transmissions to persuade him. Most importantly, Haka-Dojin was extremely famous 5,000 years ago and was at his peak. However, 5,000 years had passed. For the Dharma Dao Jun who had a lifespan of 10,000 years, Haka-Dojin was already in his late stages and was definitely not a match for Dao Lord Immortal Sword at his peak. Haka-Dojin was indifferent and stood up slowly with a surging battle intent. Very good. I haven't fought for 5,000 years and was looking for an opponent. You came at the right time. Fight! Haka-Dojin hollered and dermic powers surged within his body as he conjured a scarlet spear in reverse. It was almost transparent and scorching hot, as though it had been burned for 7 days and 7 nights. Chapter 978. Swoosh. Haka-Dojin tossed in reverse and a red light flashed. In the blink of an eye, the fire spear had already arrived before Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the surrounding air was already burning. Many Dao Lords retreated. If they were too close to a battle of this level, they would be embroiled in it. Clang! There was no way to see Dao Lord Immortal Sword's actions clearly. A chilling sword with 6 dermic patterns appeared in his hand. A Khanate Dao Lord dermic weapon. Although the fire spear was fast, Dao Lord Immortal Sword's sword technique was even faster. After drawing his sword, he slashed. Buzz! The sword struck the tip of the spear and sliced it into pieces along the red body of the spear, producing an ear-piercing sound. Back in Thousand Demon Valley, Su Zimo had witnessed Dao Lord Immortal Sword's methods. However, that was only a clone of Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Now that he was watching the battle up close, Su Zimo truly felt the terror of the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking. The two of them merely exchanged a single move and the dermic powers in the entire hall seemed to have been sucked dry as the entire hall trembled. Swash! After destroying Haka-Dojin's fire spear with a single slash, Dao Lord Immortal Sword did not stop at all. In a flash, he transformed into a sword beam and arrived before Haka-Dojin instantly. He knew that the Dharma Dao Jun was definitely not his match in melee combat. Therefore, he shortened the distance right away, wanting to suppress Haka-Dojin with his supreme sword Dao. Boom! Haka-Dojin's expression was unchanged as he tapped his glabella gently with his finger. A scarlet tripod flew out and landed in front of him, blocking the incoming sword. That tripod was also a Khanate Dao Lord dermic weapon. The moment the two of them exchanged blows, they had already summoned their destiny Dharmic weapons. Swash! Tao Lord Immortal Sword's figure flashed once more and circled around the scarlet tripod, arriving behind Haka-Dojin. His movement technique was way too fast. Even some of the Dharma Daojun present could not see it clearly, let alone Jinying Jinjuan and void reversions. Is this the sword sect's sword evasion technique? It truly lives up to its reputation. Tao Lord Immortal Sword killed many strong enemies in the fight for the Dharma characteristic, ranking with his hand sword escape technique. No one in the same realm can match up to such a movement technique. The Dharma Daojun present today were not nobodies. They all had their own feelings about this battle. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's judgment was very accurate. He held a 3-foot-long green sword in his hand and relied on the sword escape technique to move nimbly. As for Haka-Dojin's destiny Dharmic weapon, it was a crimson cauldron. Although it was powerful, it was not flexible enough. Haka-Dojin didn't even turn around. He formed a seal with his hands and lightly shouted, "Disperse." Whoosh! 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 Beside Haka-Dojin, 3 crimson flames instantly appeared and slowly revolved around him. Scarlet Flame Revolving Lantern. Su Zimo, Nangong Ling and the others recognized it right away. It was a Dharmic art from the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra that could be used for both offense and defense. The moment Tao Lord Immortal Sword's sword arrived behind Haka-Dojin, it was struck by a ball of flames. Instantly, flames ignited on the sword and its temperature rose rapidly. Destroy! Tao Lord Immortal Sword hollered and sword chi burst forth from his body, tearing through the void. All life seemed to be destroyed by the sword chi. Lifeless sword art. Sword cultivators were known for their killing. Tao Lord Immortal Sword had even pushed his killing techniques to their limits. Haka-Dojin had already turned around and his eyes lit up. His hands conjured hand seals repeatedly and the 3 balls of flames that were initially revolving around him gathered rapidly, forming a gigantic fireball. Samadhi Tao Fire. Swoosh! The fireball collided fiercely towards Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Everywhere it passed, Dharmic powers were incinerated and even space distorted. Lifeless sword art, slash! Tao Lord Immortal Sword's blood chi burst forth and his sword buzzed. He conjured a sword art with one hand and waved his sword with the other, slashing down viciously at the incoming fireball. Boom! The Samadhi Tao fire was split into pieces by the sword. Not good, even the Samadhi Tao fire can't defend against the sharpness of Immortal Sword. Tao Lord Scarlet Star's expression changed as he realized that something was amiss. Su Zimo's gaze sharpened slightly. He could clearly see that after the Samadhi Tao fire was destroyed by Tao Lord Immortal Sword, Haka-Dojin's Dharmic art did not stop. The shattered balls of flames floated towards Tao Lord Immortal Sword. When they arrived, they gathered again and formed a ball of Samadhi Tao fire. Many Tao Lords were in an uproar. This kind of method of controlling fire really made people feel amazed. Su Zimo was stunned as well. To think that fire Dharmic arts could be controlled to such an extent. Even the bystanders were surprised, let alone Tao Lord Immortal Sword who was in the midst of it. He destroyed the Samadhi Tao fire with a single slash. Before he could retract his sword, a ball of Samadhi Tao fire had already arrived before him. Although the ball of flames was much smaller than just now, it was still fatal. At that moment, it was already too late to retract his sword. Lifeless sword body. Tao Lord Immortal Sword roared furiously. Suddenly, a gigantic phantom charged out of his body and burst forth with endless sword chi, destroying the Samadhi Tao fire before him instantly. Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. At this point of the battle, to everyone's surprise, Tao Lord Immortal Sword was at a disadvantage and was forced to release his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. 89 feet. It's already infinitely close to 90 feet. How impressive. Back when Immortal Sword obtained the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking, this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was only 85 feet tall. To think that it would have grown to 89 feet now. I reckon that there's a high chance that he can cultivate a 90 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. The outcome of this battle between the two of them will probably depend on the clash of their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. As the Tao Lords discussed, the gigantic heaven and earth Dharma characteristic revealed its sharpness and charged towards Hakka Dojin like an unsheathed sword. Boom! A loud bang sounded from Hakka Dojin's body as well. A gigantic phantom burst forth from above his head and rose rapidly. Its entire body was scarlet and burned with raging flames, emitting a scorching and violent aura. The gazes of many Tao Lords changed gradually with grim expressions. Suddenly, they realized that the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic before them seemed to be half a head taller than Tao Lord Immortal Sword's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. This Dharma characteristic, heavens, 90 feet tall. Supreme Dharma characteristic. 9 was the extreme number, and a Dharma characteristic that was 90 feet tall could be called a supreme Dharma characteristic no matter what type of heaven and earth Dharma characteristic it was. What a surprise, extreme fire. Seems like he's prepared to teach his junior a lesson. Tao Lord Divine Moon of Soaring Feather Sect could not help but praise, 90 feet, supreme Dharma characteristic. Tao Lord Cloud Rain's eyes widened in disbelief. 5,000 years ago, Hakka Dojin's Dharma characteristic was only 80 feet tall and was about the same as him. How did Hakka Dojin's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic reach such a terrifying realm 5,000 years later after he lost his body? Everyone thought that Hakka Dojin's combat strength would definitely weaken after he lost his body and entered his later years after his peak. However, apart from Su Zimo, no one knew how Hakka Dojin spent the past 5,000 years. In the depths of the cold lake, Hakka Dojin fought against the unknown poison alone for 5,000 years. It would have been fine if Hakka Dojin had died. Now that he was reborn, his essence spirit had long become incomparably condensed and pure under that unimaginable tempering, reaching a terrifying height. It had even surpassed the Dharma characteristic realm. Even if Tao Lord Immortal Sword did not invite him to fight, Extreme Fire would have fought him. Extreme Fire wanted to make use of Tao Lord Immortal Sword to take that most important step. Chapter 979. Even without this battle, Extreme Fire might be able to advance to the conjoint body realm if he continued cultivating. However, with a strong opponent like Tao Lord Immortal Sword, there was a high chance that Hakka Dojin would find an opportunity to break through if he won this battle. Hakka Dojin wanted to trample on Tao Lord Immortal Sword and become a mighty figure. Although he hadn't cultivated in the past 5,000 years, he hadn't cultivated. However, the experience of fighting against that terrifying poison caused his Tao heart and will to reach an indestructible and unshakable state. Therefore, after he reconstructed his body, his combat strength was much stronger than before. It was precisely because of the tempering of 5,000 years that Hakka Dojin was able to create a 90 feet tall Dharma characteristic. Supreme Dharma characteristic. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's eyes were bloodshot. At that moment, he was truly enraged and could not be bothered about capturing Hakka Dojin alive. He only wanted to win this battle and give it his all. Today, I'll slay your supreme Dharma characteristic. Tao Lord Immortal Sword roared with a menacing expression. Hakka Dojin's Dharma characteristic was half a head taller than Tao Lord Immortal Sword's. However, they had to fight to find out which of the two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics was stronger. Even if some ordinary heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were of the same height, their strength would definitely not be comparable to heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that had been passed down through the ages. For example, the 10 feet 6 golden body, withered Zen Dharma characteristic, glass Dharma body and earth malevolent body were all legacy Dharma characteristics of super sects with shocking might. The lifeless sword body was one of the legacy Dharma characteristics of sword sect. 2 balls of flames burned in Hakka Dojin's eyes as he said coldly, "Immortal Sword, you've lost." From today onwards, all of your glory will be trampled beneath my feet. Today, Haka Dojin wanted to trample on Tao Lord Immortal Sword and advance to the conjoint body realm. Everyone thought that Haka Dojin's heaven and earth dharma characteristic did not have a name. However, they did not know that this heaven and earth dharma characteristic was the scarlet flame dharmic body depicted in the top-tier cultivation technique, the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra, the pinnacle of the Tao of Fire. The two Tao Lords stood there within the palace, facing each other. On the other hand, their heaven and earth dharma characteristics were indomitable. One was burning with raging flames while the other was bursting with sharp sword chi. They waved their arms and collided violently. Boom! The power struggle between the two heaven and earth dharma characteristics was terrifying. The entire hall was instantly dismembered. Clang clang clang. Sword chi burst forth, shattering the entire hall into pieces and riddling it with holes. Burned by the raging flames, the shattered palace instantly melted into a fiery red liquid that fell from the sky like a rain of fire. Shocked, the Tao Lords retreated yet again. The two heaven and earth dharma characteristics collided repeatedly and their tall figures resembled two divine beings. Deafening booms could be heard endlessly, as though they were about to destroy the world. This was the power of the Dharma Dao Jun. The eyes of Nan Gongling and the others were filled with yearning and envy. Only by mastering this kind of power would his cultivation not be in vain. The battle between the two heaven and earth dharma characteristics had already reached a climax. Exclamation point. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's heaven and earth dharma characteristic conjured a gigantic sword with both hands and sliced off one of the arm of the scarlet flame dharmic body viciously. The arm that was burning with raging flames was like a thick stone pillar. It crashed down with a loud bang, causing the entire ground to tremble. Heaven and earth dharma characteristics were phantoms created by cultivators. However, when the arm was sliced down, it was as though it was corporeal. Even though it was a severed arm, it was enough to kill the Dharma Dao Jun who was of average strength. Poof! Although the scarlet flame dharmic body only had a single arm left, it seized the opportunity to punch through the chest of the lifeless sword body. This clash seemed like an internecine outcome. However, Tao Lord Immortal Sword's expression turned paler. The fist of the scarlet flame dharmic body pierced the chest of the lifeless sword body and a series of scarlet flames burst forth from the wound in a bedazzling manner. Swoosh! The flames intensified and burst forth from the chest of the lifeless sword body, engulfing his entire body from the inside out. If this kind of flame attacked from the outside, the lifeless sword body could still destroy it with its sharp and fierce sword chi. But now, those flames were burst forth from the body of the lifeless sword body. Roar! Tao Lord Immortal Sword let out a deep roar and his body trembled. His essence spirit was pushed to its limits and dharmic powers were injected continuously. His heaven and earth dharma characteristic let out a painful roar in the flames as well. Burn! Haka Dojin hollered and willed. The scarlet flame dharmic body strode forward and opened its mouth, spitting out a stream of scarlet lava that landed on the lifeless sword body. Shing! The sword chi on the lifeless sword body was extinguished by the terrifying lava instantly. The lifeless sword body struggled and roared. Its eyes, ears, mouth, and nostrils were all emitting raging flames and thick smoke. The flames from both inside and outside incinerated the lifeless sword body completely. When they saw that, many Tao Lords were dumbfounded and could not conceal the shock in their eyes. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was defeated. The number 1 of the current Dharma characteristic ranking had lost to the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago who was already past his peak and in his later years. Although the scarlet flame dharmic body lost an arm, it was still around and the flames on its body did not diminish, it could still release terrifying power. As for the lifeless sword body, it was completely burned into nothingness. Boom! The scarlet flame dharmic body with a severed arm roared and strode forward. Its gigantic foot that was burning with flames stomped down towards Tao Lord Immortal Sword. This time, it carried a supreme pressure, as if it was crushing an ant. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's face was pale as he swallowed an elixir and forcefully channeled his essence spirit. Conjuring hand seals, he conjured a gigantic sword and stabbed it towards the incoming foot. Clang! An ear-piercing sound could be heard when the sword struck the foot. Tao Lord Immortal Sword shuddered. Then, under the gazes of countless people, this huge long sword was instantly burned red and almost transparent. Snap! The sword broke. Exclamation point. As though he was struck by lightning, Tao Lord Immortal Sword retreated before the scarlet flame dermic body's foot landed and dodged the calamity. Even so, he was still seriously injured. While he was still in the air, he spat out a mouthful of blood. A crushing defeat. Without his heaven and earth dharma characteristic, Tao Lord Immortal Sword's strength was not enough to fight against a supreme dharma characteristic. Even a supreme dharma characteristic with a severed arm could suppress it. Boom! 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 The scarlet flame dermic body strode towards Tao Lord Immortal Sword with torrential flames. Fellow Taoists, save me! Tao Lord Immortal Sword yelled with a terrified expression. Just now, Tao Lord Breaking Skies of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Tao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace and the others were still aggressive. However, at that moment, they were wary and did not dare to attack. They were not a match even for the damaged scarlet flame dermic body. This battle had utterly stunned all of the Tao Lords. It was clear that Hakuadojin was filled with killing intent and was invincible. Who would dare to face him head-on? Tao Lord Cloud Rain's gaze flickered but he did not attack. The other Tao Lords did not dare to, but he had another motive. If Hakuadojin were to disregard everything and kill Tao Lord Immortal Sword, there was a high chance that Sword Sect would take revenge on 100 Refinement Sect. At that time, many sects and factions might be implicated. The fight between the righteous sects was beneficial to him. Although he had helped Tao Lord Immortal Sword fight for the heaven-slaying sword art, that was because of the benefits promised by Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Fairy Snowdrift had an indifferent expression. Before she came, she had already stated that she would remain neutral and would not interfere in the fight between the two sides. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's heart turned cold when he saw the reactions of the many Tao Lords. Chapter 980. Senior Brother. With a soft holler, Sword Sect's Qin Pianran stood out. Boom! Qin Pianran's body swayed and a phantom charged out of her body with sword qi, charging towards the scarlet flame dermic body without hesitation. In a situation where all the Tao Lords were retreating, afraid that they would not be able to dodge in time, she stood out. Qin Pianran's heaven and earth dharma characteristic was known as the startling sword body and was also one of the legacy dharma characteristics of Sword Sect. It was 70 feet tall. Under normal circumstances, the startling sword body was definitely a top-tier dharma characteristic. However, in the face of the 90 feet tall supreme dharma characteristic, her dharma characteristic was like a child that charged forward like a moth darting into a flame. Qin Pianran ignored her heaven and earth dharma characteristic. In a flash, she arrived beside Tao Lord Immortal Sword and helped him up before retreating rapidly. Boom! The two dharma images of heaven and earth collided, exploding with a loud bang that shook the heavens and the earth. Qin Pianran's startling sword body only managed to defend for a moment before it was shattered by the scarlet flame dermic body that had lost an arm and turned into nothingness. Qin Pianran's essence spirit was shaken and grunted dully. She staggered and her face turned much paler. However, because of that delay, she had already escaped the battlefield with Tao Lord Immortal Sword and was temporarily out of danger. Junior sister, thank you. Tao Lord Immortal Sword panted heavily and felt a sense of lingering fear. Instinctively, he gripped Qin Pianran's slender hand tightly and his palms were filled with cold sweat. Senior brother, it's good that you're fine. That person is too strong. Let's return to the sect first. Qin Pianran's heart skipped a beat when Tao Lord Immortal Sword grabbed her hand. Her face flushed red as she persuaded softly. Tao Lord Immortal Sword gradually composed himself and calmed down. When he saw Qin Pianran's blushing face, his heart skipped a beat and he whispered, "Junior sister, I understand your feelings for me. Don't worry, I won't let you down." "Yes," Qin Pianran lowered her head and replied softly. After so many years, she had finally heard these words from her senior brother. At this moment, she felt incomparably happy. Her nose was sour, and her eyes were red. Many of the Tao lords present remained calm when they saw this, but two of them sneered inwardly. One of them was Tao Lord Cloud Rain. He was an expert in love and was experienced. Naturally, he could tell that Tao Lord Immortal Sword was merely patronizing Qin Pianran. The other was Fairy Snowflake. That was because previously, Tao Lord Immortal Sword had even expressed his love for her, but she rejected him. The Crimson Flame battle form stood in the middle of the battlefield, its long crimson hair dancing in the wind. Its body was covered in raging flames, and its might was rampant. It did not continue to pursue. Haka Dojin looked at Tao Lord Immortal Sword, who had fled into the distance with a mocking look in his eyes as he declared, "The Dharma characteristic ranking this time round is truly lousy. Even the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking is nothing much." Tao Lord Immortal Sword grit his teeth and veins popped on his forehead with an indignant expression. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, this kind of crushing defeat caused him to lose all face. It would not take long for the news of the defeat to be spread across the entire Middle Continent and the cultivation world. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's heart was filled with endless hatred and anger. His gaze shifted between Haka Dojin and Su Zimo. Haka Dojin was the one who gave him today's humiliation, and Su Zimo was definitely involved as well. If he could have obtained the heaven-slaying sword art back in Thousand Demon Valley and cultivated it, the outcome of today's battle would have been completely different. Haka Dojin waved his hand and said coldly, "Get lost. Remember not to come to 100 Refinement Sect to strut around in the future. I'm only teaching you a lesson this time round." That old thing. Tao Lord Cloud Rain cursed internally. He thought that Haka Dojin would start a massacre in his rage and become hot-blooded, sowing enmity with the few major immortal sections. To think that Haka Dojin would stop in time. That was Haka Dojin. He had grasped the right amount of time in the middle. Not only did he not become enemies with the major immortal sects, he also achieved the goal of establishing dominance and intimidating them. Today, not only did they have to retreat, anyone in the cultivation world who wanted to touch Su Zimo would have to go through some trouble in the future. A situation like this where they charged into 100 Refinement Sect to demand for someone would never happen again. Extreme fire, I'll definitely take revenge for today's humiliation in the future. Tao Lord Immortal Sword clenched his fists tightly and said through gritted teeth. "You won't have a chance," Haka Dojin said indifferently. "I have to thank you for being able to sense the opportunity to break through so quickly." Many Tao lords were shocked. Breakthrough? If he broke through from the Dharma characteristic realm, wouldn't he be at the conjoint body realm? Tao Lord Immortal Sword could tell what Haka Dojin meant as well. His blood chi attacked his heart and he spat out another mouthful of blood, looking much more dispirited. It was a crushing defeat. Haka Dojin did not take him seriously at all in this battle. Haka Dojin was using him to establish his dominance, intimidate and even use him as a stepping stone. "Senior brother, let's go." When he saw Tao Lord Immortal Sword in such a state, Qin Pianran felt a sense of pity and persuaded gently, "Senior brother, you're a titular disciple of the sect and your talent is definitely not inferior to anyone. Go back and continue cultivating. You'll definitely be able to make a comeback." Titular disciple. Talent. All those words were extremely ear-piercing to Tao Lord Immortal Sword. In fact, he even felt that Qin Pianran was mocking him. Humph. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's expression was cold as he flung Qin Pianran's arm away viciously. He had completely forgotten that the woman beside him had just saved his life. Qin Pianran sighed gently but was not angry. In her opinion, anyone would lose their composure after receiving such a blow. She believed that her senior brother was not targeting her. Fellow Taoists who are here to congratulate can stay as guests in 100 Refinement Sect. Hakka Dojin surveyed his surroundings and said slowly, as for those with ulterior motives, please return. Men, send the guests off. Many Dao lords could sense that Hakka Dojin's aura was rising continuously and had reached a critical point. Hakka Dojin was about to break through to the conjoint body realm. It's a rare opportunity. I'll be thick-skinned and stay to observe. Dao Lord Divine Moon smiled gently. Not bad. To think that I would have such an opportunity after coming to congratulate you, another Dharma Dao Jun clapped and smiled. Not everyone had the chance to witness a breakthrough to the conjoint body realm. For all the Dao Lords present, it was an extremely precious experience. As for Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others, they were naturally embarrassed to stay after being chased away. All of them turned to leave with dark expressions. If you allow it, I'd like to stay and observe as well. Fairy Snowdrift cupped her fists. Sure, Hakka Dojin nodded. Fairy Snowdrift had remained neutral right from the beginning and Hakka Dojin would not target her. Hee, Extreme Fire, see you in the future. Dao Lord Cloud Rain knew his place and cupped his fists before turning to leave. Su Zimo looked at Yen Beichen. Although nobody knew the motive of Yen Beichen's visit, if he wanted to stay, Su Zimo would definitely speak up for him and Hakka Dojin would not reject him either. However, at that moment, Yen Beichen stood up expressionlessly and turned to leave without saying a single word the entire time. The remaining Dao Lords all frowned, completely confused. Chapter 981. What is this Shura doing here? Did he come to 100 Refinement Sect to take a look before leaving? I'm not sure. That person has always been unscrupulous. Who knows what he's thinking? He's probably here for Su Zimo as well. However, when he saw Hakka Dojin's combat strength, he knew that he was no match for him and fled. Many Dao Lords looked at Yen Beichen's back view and discussed softly. Su Zimo frowned slightly. He was probably the only one who knew that Yen Beichen definitely had a motive for coming here and it was very likely for him. Everyone, please come to the inner hall. Hakka Dojin said and nodded to Su Zimo before turning to walk into 100 Refinement Sect. Hakka Dojin was about to break through to the conjoint body realm and this was an important matter. Su Zimo did not disturb him because of Yen Beichen. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and walked out of 100 Refinement Sect alone. Uncle Master, where are you going? Dao Lord Scarlet Star was about to leave when he bumped into Su Zimo and asked casually. It's nothing. I'm going out for a walk, Su Zimo replied ambiguously. Dao Lord Scarlet Star reminded, Uncle Master, be careful. Don't leave 100 Refinement Sect. Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others shouldn't have gone far yet. With that said, Dao Lord Scarlet Star left in a hurry to inform the elders of the sect. Hakka Dojin was about to break through to the Dharma characteristic realm and all the conjoint body elders of 100 Refinement Sect had to appear to protect him. Nothing must happen during this process. At that moment, everyone's attention was on Hakka Dojin and no one noticed Su Zimo's departure. Su Zimo continued forward and sped outside 100 Refinement Sect. Passing by the entrance of 100 Refinement Sect, Su Zimo came before the gatekeeper boy and asked, where did the Dharma Dao Jun go? Over there. The gatekeeper boy pointed at him. Su Zimo nodded. Without hesitation, he ran in the direction the boy had pointed. Even if he met Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others, he was not afraid. Although his battle prowess was inferior, he could rely on his many trump cards, such as the blood escape art, to escape with his life. After running for a short distance, Su Zimo's heart stirred as if he had sensed something. He lowered his body and his entire body was almost touching the ground. His hands and feet moved at the same time. His body wriggled like a huge python and slowly slithered forward without making a sound. Su Zimo only stopped when he arrived at a dense patch of grass. He squinted his eyes and looked ahead. His ears twitched as he listened carefully. There were a few figures standing in the air in front of him. Dao Lord Immortal Sword and Qin Pian Ran of the Sword Sect. There was also Dao Lord Cloud Rain, Dao Lord Breaking Sky of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Dao Lord Fire Cloud of Zephyr Thunder Palace, Dao Lord Cloud Sun of Primordial Chaos Sect, Monk Kong Wen of Formless Temple, and Monk Liao Ming of Wisdom Temple. There was also Dao Lord Heaven Sea of the Five Elements Sect, one of the upper sections. The 9 Dao Lords stood together. Another figure stood opposite them. He wore a black robe, had a cold expression, and carried a blood-red saber on his shoulder. Shura Yen Beichen. Shura, why are you following us? Dao Lord Cloud Rain frowned slightly and asked impatiently. Shura was eccentric and bloodthirsty. Even people of the Fiend's sects were unwilling to interact with him and avoided him. Yen Beichen replied indifferently, my Dao title is Shura. Naturally, I'm here to kill. Dao Lord Cloud Rain asked, kill who? All of you, Yen Beichen said 2 words and the scene fell silent. Fufu. Ha. Immediately after, Dao Lord Breaking Skies, Dao Lord Fire Cloud and the others laughed mockingly. Are you joking with us? Chaos Essence Sect's Dao Lord Cloud Sun sneered. Among them, they were either at late stage or perfected Dharma characteristic realm. Furthermore, there was an existence like Dao Lord Cloud Rain. Although Shura was extremely famous, he had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm. Everyone truly did not take him seriously. If not for the fact that Dao Lord Cloud Rain was present, they would have killed the Azura before them in the name of slaying fiends. Among the 9 Dao Lords, there were a few who did not laugh. Dao Lord Cloud Rain was one of them. That was because he knew that Shura never joked. If Shura said that he wanted to kill, he would definitely kill. Dao Lord Immortal Sword frowned and looked at Shura with wariness in his eyes. If he was in his peak condition, he could naturally suppress Shura with ease. But now that he was severely injured and his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was destroyed, he could not condense it within a short period of time. If he were to truly fight against Shura, the outcome would be unpredictable. Thankfully, there were 9 of them and there should not be any danger. Dao Lord Heaven Sea of Five Elements Sect knew that he was the weakest among them and did not have the right to mock Shura. Therefore, he coughed gently and asked, fellow Daoist, we have no feud with you. Why do you want to kill us? Shura never needs a reason to kill. Yen Beichen's gaze intensified and killing intent burst forth. Without any warning, his shoulders shrugged and the blood-colored saber jumped up as though it was alive. The blood vessels on the saber expanded and blood chi filled the air. Swash! There was a flash of blood. It was too fast. Dao Lord Heaven Sea was stunned. The next moment, his head flew high into the air and sprayed blood everywhere. In midair, the headless corpse fell. His essence spirit had long been minced by the sharp saber chi and he did not even have a chance to escape. Dao Lord Heaven Sea was dead. Even until his death, he did not understand why he died. More than that, he did not expect Shura to be so decisive and not give him any chance to react. Su Zimo, who was sprawled in the grass, was shocked when he saw that and a look of realization flashed through his eyes. He finally understood why Shura was here. Shura was here to kill. Kill for him. Su Zimo was right. News of the Thousand Crane Tea Party spread throughout the Middle Continent and Yen Beichen naturally heard about it as well. Furthermore, Yen Beichen knew that the immortal sects such as Sword Sect and Chaos Essence Sect would definitely not let this matter rest and would definitely take action. Therefore, even though he had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he rushed over fearlessly when he heard that many Dao Lords were looking for trouble with Su Zimo. It was just like how Yen Beichen, who was still at the Void Reversion realm, crossed a large region and traveled day and night for a year when he found out that Misty Peak was in trouble. In the end, he resolved the crisis of Misty Peak almost single-handedly. Everyone thought that Shura was heartless and did not care about his family. However, Su Zimo knew that even though the Azura attained his Tao through killing, there was still a boiling hot blood flowing through his bones. The only thing that was heartless was the Shura saber in his hands. Although Haka Dojin was strong, he was still wary and did not dare to kill Tao Lord Immortal Sword for real. Therefore, he stopped in time after achieving his goal of establishing dominance and intimidation. After all, Haka Dojin had to consider 100 Refinement sect. As for Yen Beichen, he had no qualms. That was because he was Shura who attained his Tao through killing. Haka Dojin was only teaching Tao Lord Immortal Sword and the others a lesson. However, Shura Yen Beichen had no intention of letting the 9 of them return alive. Many Tao Lords were shocked and retreated. Apart from Tao Lord Cloud Rain, no one expected Shura to dare to attack 1-on-9. Less than that, no one expected Shura's methods to be so terrifying that Tao Lord Heaven Sea was killed by a single slash before he could even react. Chapter 982. Shura. Tao Lord Breaking Skies of Heavenly Dipper sect glared and hollered, "We didn't attack you on account of Tao Lord Cloud Rain. Don't push your luck. Cut the crap. I'll kill Cloud Rain too." Yen Beichen sneered and slashed forward with his blood-colored saber. Blood chi filled the air and a gigantic purgatory appeared in front of everyone, enveloping the remaining 8 Tao Lords. Purgatory Saber Intent. At this point of cultivation, one could conjure dermic powers to materialize and fight against the top dermic arts head-on. Although Yen Beichen had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm, his saber intent had already been cultivated to the peak. Instantly, the entire battlefield was filled with a sinister aura and fiend shadows. Blood flowed like rivers and corpses were strewn everywhere as ghostly wails could be heard. Heavenly Dipper Fist. Tao Lord Breaking Skies hollered and his blood chi surged as he channeled dermic powers and punched the surrounding purgatory. Firmament Art. Tao Lord Cloud Son of Chaos Essence sect condensed a top-tier dermic art of his sect, wanting to break through the purgatory and communicate with heaven and earth. Amitba, Monk Kong-Wen of Formless Monastery pressed his palms together and conjured hand seals, forming a formless dermic seal that smashed towards the surrounding purgatory as well. The Dharma Daojun present were all paragons of the various immortal and Buddhist sections. Otherwise, they would not have dared to rush to 100 Refinement sect to ask for him. There was no need to say anything else. The Tao Lords had a tacit understanding and attacked at the same time, prepared to shatter the purgatory. In the eyes of many Tao Lords, although Shura was a titular disciple, he had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm after all. It was a fool's dream for him to want to fight against 8 alone. However, everyone had overlooked one thing. Among them, there were only 2 titular disciples. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was severely injured and was supported by Qin Pian Ran. Neither of them attacked. As for Tao Lord Cloud Rain, he frowned and conjured a hand seal. A mist formed around him to defend against the purgatory saber intent without taking the initiative to attack. Among the people present, Tao Lord Cloud Rain was the one who knew Shura the best. If he went all out, he had a 60% chance of suppressing Shura. Although the 2 of them were both titular disciples and his cultivation realm was a level higher, his cultivation techniques and secret skills were not lethal enough against Shura. Shura was merciless and killed to prove his Tao. His 7 emotions threads and 6 desires palm had little effect on Shura. Moreover, Shura was merciless and bloodthirsty. He didn't even recognize his own family. If he really fought with his life on the line, even he would be afraid. Furthermore, both of them were titular disciples of the fiend sects and there was no need for them to fight the moment they met. At that thought, Tao Lord Cloud Rain conjured a dermic art and defended passively. Apart from the 3 of them, there were only 5 Dharma Daojun in the purgatory who had launched a counterattack. White bones! Yen Beichen shouted and waved his long saber. The dense saber aura surged within the purgatory. Crash! The corpses that had been lying motionless in the river of blood seemed to have sensed some sort of bizarre power and stood up one after another. One after another, they were densely packed. All of those skeletons were paragons that died in the hands of Yen Beichen when they were alive. There were not many nameless people. Bang! 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 The counterattack of Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others was blocked by the skeletons and could not shake the purgatory. However, the blood in the purgatory increased and was thicker than the ankles of everyone present. A sinister wind blew and the stench of blood filled the air. The skeletons could not defend against the dermic arts and weapons of Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others and retreated continuously. However, as long as they were not torn apart, even if they lost their arms and heads, the skeletons could still stand up and continue charging towards the 5 Tao Lords. Normally speaking, Buddhist dermic arts were the most effective against dermic arts of the fiend sections. However, the Buddhist dermic arts of Monk Kong Wen and Monk Liao Ming could not suppress Shura at all. Water could counter fire, but fire could also burn water into nothingness. Sanskrit echoed endlessly and a Buddhist light filled the air. However, the wails and howls of ghosts were even louder in the purgatory and blood chi surged into the skies, suppressing the Buddhist light viciously. Not only were the 5 Tao Lords unable to break through the purgatory, they were even in a stalemate. When he saw that, Qin Pianren asked softly with a grim expression, "Senior brother, can you do it?" Tao Lord Immortal Sword was silent as he looked at Tao Lord Cloud Rain without saying anything. Naturally, Qin Pianren noticed Tao Lord Cloud Rain's actions as well and whispered, "Tao Lord Cloud Rain is someone of the fiend's sex after all and has no intention of attacking. Let's join forces and kill this fiend together with fellow Taoists of the immortal sex." When he saw that Tao Lord Cloud Rain did not take the initiative to attack, Qin Pianren's idea was to stand out and fight Shura together with Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others. However, Tao Lord Immortal Sword's thoughts were on how to escape. Right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Yen Beichen's glabella shone and a shuddering spirit consciousness fluctuation burst forth. A blood-colored saber formed from spirit consciousness appeared and slashed down viciously at Monk Liao Ming. Essence Spirit Secret Skill. Shura, you, Monk Liao Ming was alarmed. Before he could say anything, he hurriedly conjured his Essence Spirit Secret Skill as well, wanting to defend against the spirit consciousness blood saber. Boom! The two spirit consciousnesses collided. After a brief pause, Monk Liao Ming's spirit consciousness was sliced into two by Shura's spirit consciousness blood saber and entered his head. Monk Liao Ming's body stiffened and his eyes widened. Gradually, his gaze dissipated and his life force drained rapidly as well. The spirit consciousness blood saber slashed down but there were no injuries on Monk Liao Ming's face. However, his essence spirit in his consciousness had already been sliced into two by the blood saber and was completely destroyed. This was a fight between essence spirits. The difference of a single move could mean the end of his life. Monk Liao Ming did not even have the chance to release his heaven and earth dharma characteristic. Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others were shocked. Cultivators would not use essence spirit secret skills in a fight unless they had no other choice. After all, a fight between essence spirits was way too dangerous. Many times, even if one could kill their opponent with essence spirit secret skills, their own essence spirits might be shaken or even injured. It was difficult to recover from an injured essence spirit, that would have a huge impact on a cultivator's future cultivation. Just now in the battle between Tao Lord Immortal Sword and Hakka Dojin in 100 Refinement Sect, both parties had already unleashed their true flames and released their heaven and earth dharma characteristics. However, they did not use their essence spirit secret skills. That was also to leave a way out for themselves. Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others had not expected that Shura would suddenly release his essence spirit secret skill after a short battle and leave no way out for himself. The Azura's killing intent was so heavy that it made one tremble in fear. Less than that, they had not expected Shura's essence spirit secret skill to be so terrifying that it could kill Monk Liao Ming instantly. What a lunatic. Tao Lord Cloud Rain cursed internally. Initially, he wanted to rely on his powerful strength to watch the battle from the side. But now that Shura had even released his Essence Spirit secret skill, he was afraid that the Spirit Consciousness Blood Saber would turn around and slash towards him. Others might not be able to do something like that, but Shura was definitely capable of it. The mist within Tao Lord Cloud Rain's body surged and pushed away the white skeletons that were charging over. Arriving beside the purgatory, he flipped his palm and landed it on the purgatory. Boom! The purgatory was penetrated by his palm. Tao Lord Cloud Rain moved and sped into the distance in a flash. He had already cultivated to this realm, and if nothing went wrong, he would definitely be able to advance to the conjoint body realm in the future. He truly did not want to provoke a ruthless person like Shura for no reason. Chapter 983. Tao Lord Cloud Rain's escape caused Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others to panic. Swash! The Spirit Consciousness Blood Saber descended once more and slashed towards Chaos Essence Sex Tao Lord Cloud Sun. Fellow Taoists, help me! At the same time that Tao Lord Cloud Sun cried for help, he released his Essence Spirit secret skill right away. What AF * King Lunatic? Tao Lord Breaking Skies cursed. Everyone, fight it out. Tao Lord Fire Cloud roared. Die, fiend! Suddenly, Monk Kong Wen's Dharma characteristic turned solemn and golden light shone. The three of them released their Essence Spirit secret skills at the same time. God-slaying sword. Qin Pianran hollered softly and touched his glabella with his fingertip. A Spirit Consciousness sword was condensed and slashed towards the Spirit Consciousness Blood Saber. Tao Lord Immortal Sword watched coldly from the sidelines without attacking. Many Spirit Consciousnesses collided silently. However, under Su Zimo's gaze, the void where the Spirit Consciousnesses collided distorted and trembled with a shuddering power. The five Dharma Dao Jun shuddered. Tao Lord Cloud Sun suffered an even greater impact and grunted. As for the Spirit Consciousness Blood Saber, it was shattered by the impact of the five Spirit Consciousnesses as well. Yen Beichen's face turned pale instantly. However, he pursed his lips tightly and did not say anything. Su Zimo's heart sank. Judging from Yen Beichen's condition, his Essence Spirit seemed to have suffered quite a bit of shock as well and was most likely injured. The five Dharma Dao Jun were definitely not ordinary. Although Yen Beichen was a titular disciple, he had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm. It was already rare for him to be able to fight against the five Dharma Daojuan's essence spirits without being disadvantaged. Furthermore, he had killed the essence spirit of a Dao Lord before this. Su Zimo did not appear rashly. Given his strength, he would only be a burden if he rushed in. Instead, he would distract Yen Beichen. If someone released their heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, they could kill him with a casual flick of their fingers. Just as Su Zimo was worrying, Yen Beichen's eyes lit up. He didn't take a break to adjust himself. He stepped forward and attacked again. Voila! Within the purgatory, the blood river surged into the skies and created huge waves that enveloped Tao Lord Immortal Sword and the others. The white skeletons let out a series of roars and launched another attack. In the Essence Spirit fight just now, Tao Lord Cloud Sun's Essence Spirit suffered the greatest impact and there was even a scar on it. Cosmic Form. Tao Lord Yun Yang wanted to summon his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic, but he was still a step too slow. Just as a phantom rushed out of his body, the blood river rushed over and the corpses surrounded him. Before the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was released, it was shattered. Tao Lord Cloud Sun opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Die! Yen Beichen's cold voice rang in his ears. Immediately after, a blood-red light flashed past his throat. The sharp saber chi burst forth and instantly killed his primordial spirit. Tao Lord Cloud Sun of Primordial Chaos Sect was dead. Boom! 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 That single delay allowed Tao Lord Breaking Skies, Tao Lord Fire Cloud and Monk Kong Wen to summon their heaven and earth dharma characteristics one after another, and gigantic figures rose from the ground. Rumble. Boom. The white bone purgatory could not withstand the impact of the three heaven and earth dharma characteristics and was shattered, gradually dissipating. The three heaven and earth dharma characteristics were all more than 60 feet tall. To be able to cultivate a heaven and earth dharma characteristic that was 50 feet tall, one could already be considered a rather strong Tao Lord. To be able to condense a heaven and earth dharma characteristic that was more than 60 feet tall, one could definitely be considered a paragon. If they were against an ordinary Dharma Dao Jun, they would be able to suppress their opponent. Unfortunately, they were facing Shura Yen Beichen. Boom! Yen Beichen's body swayed and a blood-red phantom rushed out from above his head. Instantly, it rose to a height of 60 feet and was still growing. 70 feet, 80 feet, 85 feet. This Azura Dharma body climbed all the way to a height of 85 feet before it stopped. Yen Beichen was at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm. If he could condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 85 feet tall at early stage, there was a high chance that he could reach 89 feet and be comparable to Tao Lord Immortal Sword's lifeless sword body at perfected Dharma characteristic realm. If he had any great opportunity, it was not impossible for him to attain a 90 feet supreme Dharma characteristic. Generally speaking, cultivators would be able to condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic upon entering the Dharma characteristic realm. However, the initial height of the Dharma characteristic would determine its future potential. If a cultivator's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was only 10 feet tall or 20 feet tall at the beginning, even if that cultivator cultivated to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm, his Dharma characteristic would definitely not exceed 50 feet. If that cultivator could condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 50 feet tall at early stage Dharma characteristic realm, there was a chance that the Dharma characteristic would grow to 60 feet tall or even break through 60 feet at the perfected Dharma characteristic realm. For example, the legacy Dharma characteristic of Diamond Monastery, the 60 feet golden body. At early stage Dharma characteristic realm, one could condense a 60 feet tall golden body. This meant that when the monk of Diamond Monastery cultivated to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm, his golden body could grow to a height of 70 feet. That was already a rather terrifying height. A heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 70 feet tall was already qualified to fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking. But now, Yen Beichen's 85 feet tall Shura Dharmic body caused Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others to panic and no longer have any thoughts of resisting. Escape. Without hesitation, the three Tao Lords turned and fled, allowing their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics to block their backs. Kill. Yen Beichen hollered, and his blood-red Shura Dharmic body had a torrential blood chi. Wielding a blood-red saber in its hands, it seemed to have transformed into a Shura as it strode towards the three Dharma Dao Jun. Shu. On the other side, Tao Lord Immortal Sword seized the opportunity to channel his essence spirit. Dharmic powers surged within his body and he vanished, transforming into a sword beam that sped into the distance. Sword escape. Tao Lord Immortal Sword and Qin Pianran's heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were destroyed by Hakka Dojin and could not be condensed yet. When Tao Lord Immortal Sword saw that the situation was amiss, he fled immediately. Before he left, he did not even inform Qin Pianran. Trying to escape. Yen Beichen sneered. The Shura Dharmic body chased after Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the other two. However, he himself moved and raised the Shura saber in his hands, slashing forward. Swash! A gigantic blood-colored saber shadow descended from the skies and tore through the void, as though it wanted to slice the world into two. Instantly, it caught up to the sword beam in the distance and slashed down viciously. Although Yen Beichen was attacking Tao Lord Breaking Skies and the others, in reality, half of his attention was focused on Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was definitely someone he had to kill. This person was vengeful and suffered great humiliation in 100 Refinement sect. He hated Su Zimo to the core and would definitely cause trouble in the future if he was allowed to leave. The reason why Yan Beichen came today was to end everything. Senior brother, watch out. Right then, just as the blood-colored saber shadow was about to slash Tao Lord Immortal Sword, a beautiful figure wielded the sword in her hands and blocked it. Clang! The saber and sword collided and sparks flew. Qin Pianran's body shuddered and she could not hold on to her sword any longer. It flew out of her hands and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face turned pale as she fell from midair. She was severely injured with a single slash from the Shura. The moment she fell from midair, Qin Pianran knew that she would definitely die today and there was no way she could escape. Qin Pianran tried her best to turn back, wanting to take one last look at Tao Lord Immortal Sword. As long as she could take one last look at her senior brother, she would be satisfied and die without regrets. But when she turned her head to look, her heart gradually turned cold and sank to the bottom of the valley. That sword light had long since disappeared into the distance. It did not pause for her, not even for a moment. The person who said that he would not let her down did not even turn back to look at her. All she saw was a streak of sword light disappearing into the horizon. Chapter 984. Thump. Qin Pianran fell heavily to the ground and aggravated his injuries. His tendons and bones felt like they were about to fall apart. However, it was as though she could not feel anything and was already numb. How could the pain on her body compare to the pain in her heart right now? She was still trying her best to support her upper body. Her beautiful eyes did not blink as she stared blankly at the disappearing sword beam in the distance. There was a hint of indignance, disappointment, pain and struggle in her eyes. In the end, all her emotions vanished and her expression was numb. The light in her beautiful eyes gradually dimmed, becoming empty and lifeless. When he saw that, Su Zimo sighed internally. The truly heartless one was not Shura, but Tao Lord Immortal Sword who had left. Including the battle at 100 Refinement Sect, Qin Pianran had saved Tao Lord Immortal Sword twice. Even without their many years of relationship as fellow disciples and even if Tao Lord Immortal Sword had no feelings for Qin Pianran, the two lifesavers were enough for him to stop in his tracks and save Qin Pianran at all costs. However, Tao Lord Immortal Sword did not. He only left Qin Pianran with a cold sword beam and a cold back view. The irony was that Shura was someone of the Fiend's sects while Tao Lord Immortal Sword was someone of the Immortal sections. Who was the Immortal and who was the Fiend? Yan Beichen failed to slash Tao Lord Immortal Sword and wanted to give chase. However, he stopped after taking a few steps. He had already pushed his sword escape technique to its limits. Given his movement technique, it was almost impossible for him to catch up. At the same time, on the other side of the battlefield, Shura's dermic body had already sliced the three heaven and earth dharma characteristics into two and strode forward in hot pursuit. Bang! 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 Wherever Shura's dermic body passed, the ground quaked. Shura's dermic body was more than 80 feet tall and had huge strides. In a few steps, it caught up to Monk Kongwen. He swung his blood saber. Poof! The next moment, a shiny bald head flew up. The moment the essence spirit escaped, it was knocked into Shura's dermic body and turned into nothingness. Monk Kongwen was dead. Bang! Boom! Shura's Dharmakaya took another 2 steps forward and caught up with another person. Then, he slashed down with his blood blade. Tao Lord Firecloud summoned his Destiny dermic weapon and roared, wanting to defend. However, in front of the murderous Shura's dermic body that was more than 80 feet tall, Tao Lord Firecloud was as insignificant as an ant. His actions were akin to a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Boom! Both sides collided, resulting in a loud explosion. A terrifying power surged into Tao Lord Firecloud's body and caused his body to explode. His essence spirit was shattered and destroyed on the spot. Shura's dermic body strode forward with surging blood chi and soon caught up to the last person, Heavenly Dipper Sex Tao Lord Breaking Skies. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, Tao Lord Breaking Skies turned around and faced Shura's avatar head-on. Boom! 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 Without their heaven and earth dharma characteristics, their dermic arts and blood chi could not defend against the killing power of Shura's dermic body. After a series of collisions, Tao Lord Breaking Skies was covered in injuries as well. His expression was dispirited and his eyes were filled with endless indignation as he roared, "Shura, why? Why do you want to kill us?" Yen Beichen's expression was cold and he did not say anything, he could not be bothered with him. Exclamation point. Before long, Tao Lord Breaking Skies was sliced into two by Shura's dermic body. He died in a tragic manner and his essence spirit was destroyed. It was only at that moment that Yen Beichen revealed a hint of fatigue. This battle had consumed a lot of his energy, mental state and dermic powers. After the battle, Shura's dermic body was riddled with holes as well. It only gradually dissipated after he put away the storage bags and destiny dermic weapons left behind by the Tao Lords. Yen Beichen took out a handful of elixirs and stuffed them into his mouth. After regulating his breathing for a while, his expression relaxed and his face flushed red. Su Zimo revealed himself and walked forward. "Thank you, Senior." Su Zimo arrived before Yen Beichen and bowed deeply. Yen Beichen was not surprised when he saw Su Zimo appear. Given his cultivation, he had long sensed that someone was lurking nearby. "It's fine," Yen Beichen patted Su Zimo on the shoulder and said indifferently, "You came from Misty Peak as well. Since you came to the Middle Continent, you don't have anyone to rely on. I can't let these Dharma Daojun bully you." When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he was touched. "Senior, your injuries." Just now, Su Zimo noticed that Yen Beichen seemed to have suffered serious injuries after fighting against the 5 Dharma Daojun essence spirits. "They're all minor injuries. It's nothing." Yen Beichen waved his hand and said casually, seemingly unbothered. Pausing for a moment, Yen Beichen shifted his gaze and saw Qin Pianran lying not far away. He frowned and said, "She heard that. She can't be left alive." With that said, Yen Beichen spun the Shura saber in his hand and wanted to kill Qin Pianran on the spot. "There's no need for that," Su Zimo shook his head. "I understand your intentions, Senior." This time round, the news of Yen Beichen killing Tao Lord Immortal Sword and the others would spread throughout the cultivation world before long. The reason why he did not acknowledge Su Zimo in 100 Refinement sect was because he did not want to implicate Su Zimo because of this matter and cause trouble for Su Zimo. The reason why he wanted to kill Qin Pianran was to silence him. Su Zimo said, "Senior, I've already caused enough trouble. I really don't care about 1 or 2 more. Even if this doesn't happen, what will come will still come." Yen Beichen shook his head. "Right now, you're a disciple of extreme fire and I'm the Shura of the fiend sections. Immortals and fiends cannot coexist. Furthermore, I have many enemies. It won't be good for you if you get too close to me." "Ha ha ha ha." When he heard that, Su Zimo laughed instead and said loudly, "Senior, I'm now known as a fiend demon by the world. What's there to be afraid of if I'm close to someone from the fiend sects?" Su Zimo was filled with heroism. "Senior, Su Zimo, will remember your help today. Even if you make the entire world your enemy one day, I'm willing to fight alongside you, let alone the fact that you have many enemies." His words were extremely bold and even Yen Beichen was moved and emotional when he heard that. "All right." Yen Beichen was also an unrestrained and carefree person as he said, "Since that's the case, you don't have to call me Senior anymore. I'm a person who hates **T etiquette and rules the most. I'm slightly older than you. In the future, we can just address each other as brothers." Su Zimo's blood surged and he wanted to agree immediately. However, he hesitated for a moment and said, "My cultivation is too low. throughout history, there was no lack of cultivators who became sworn brothers in the cultivation world. However, the difference in cultivation between those cultivators would not be too great. For example, Yan Beichen and Su Zimo, one was Jining Jinjuan and the other was Dharma Daojun. Yan Beichen was more than qualified to be Su Zimo's master. It was truly unprecedented for these two cultivation realms to address each other as brothers. Humph. Yan Beichen was somewhat displeased and said, "Brother Su, what are you saying?" "I, Yan Beichen, never look at cultivation realm when addressing others as brothers. Even if you're immortal, so what if you're Jining Jinjuan?" Su Zimo no longer hesitated and cupped his fists with a smile. "Brother Yan. Brother Su." Yan Beichen called out with a hint of warmth in his cold eyes. The two of them smiled at each other. Chapter 985. Ha! Qin Pianran laid on the ground, covered in dust. Her face was pale and her eyes were empty. Suddenly, she laughed with an indifferent expression. Su Zimo and Qin Chao looked over. A look of mockery flashed through Qin Pianran's eyes as she said mockingly, "A fiend demon that kills without batting an eyelid and a cold-blooded fiend are calling each other brothers here. Truly birds of a feather flock together and are a perfect match." Su Zimo shook his head and chuckled. He could not be bothered. Unexpectedly, Yan Beichen did not kill her. He only said calmly, "Brother Su, let's go. This person is already dead. She's just a walking corpse." Su Zimo understood what Yan Beichen meant. Qin Pianran was also a pitiful person. Although she was still alive, she had suffered such a blow and her heart was already dead. She was no different from a dead person. Su Zimo and Qin Chao had just turned around and were about to leave when Qin Pianran suddenly became a little crazy. She supported her body with her arms and dragged herself in the mud. She shouted at the top of her lungs, "You are Shura. You are bloodthirsty. Why don't you kill me? Just kill me." Yan Beichen did not even turn around. He smirked and said with a hint of mockery, "I, Shura, kill all the people in the world who deserve to be killed. Some people are unscrupulous in order to survive. They deserve to be killed. But some people are determined to die. I won't kill them." Su Zimo sighed softly. Not only Shura, but he also felt it. Su Zimo knew from Qin Pianran's initial sneer that Qin Pianran wanted to die. Qin Pianran had provoked him time and time again. Even if it were someone from an immortal sect, it would be reasonable to kill her. But Shura did not. "I know, you don't dare to. Hee, you are a coward." Qin Pianran suddenly burst out laughing. His voice was already hoarse as he said, "You must be afraid that senior brother Immortal Sword will take revenge after killing me, right?" Yan Beichen turned around and looked at Qin Pianran, who was covered in mud and had a pale face. He sneered, "Stupid woman, do you really think that the Immortal Sword will come to me for revenge because of you? That must be it, that must be it." Yan Beichen's words were meant to be sarcastic, but when Qin Pianran heard it, he seemed to have found an answer. His originally dead eyes lit up. Su Zimo revealed a look of pity. Qin Pianran was infatuated with Tao Lord Immortal Sword. However, that infatuation was heart-wrenching. Time is fleeting, and youth is fleeting. Whether it was a woman in the mortal world or a female cultivator in the cultivation world, the greatest misfortune in her life was to give herself to the wrong person. Qin Pianran said loudly, "I know. Senior brother Immortal Sword did not abandon me. He went to look for help. He will definitely make a comeback. Yes, that must be it. That must be it." As though to confirm that thought, Qin Pianran gripped his fists and repeated softly to emphasize it. Yan Beichen looked at the woman before him who was on the verge of madness and sneered internally before turning to leave. However, the moment he turned around, he seemed to have thought of something and stopped in his tracks. "Since that's the case, I'll make you give up. Yen Beichen said coldly, I'll open up a cave abode nearby and stay there for the time being. Let's see if that immortal sword dares to return. If he does, I'll kill him. With that said, Yen Beichen turned to Su Zimo and asked, if you're free, come along as well. I have some cultivation insights that I can share with you. Alright, Su Zimo nodded in agreement. This place was not far from 100 Refinements sect. If anything happened, he could rush to 100 Refinements sect to deliver the news. Yen Beichen's gaze shifted to a mountain peak not far away. Without saying a word, he waved his sleeves and swept up Qin Pian ran on the ground, speeding towards the mountain peak. Su Zimo sent out a messenger spirit crane to 100 Refinements sect to inform Dao Lord Scarlet Star and the others that he was fine before chasing after Yen Beichen. The three of them arrived before the mountain peak before long. Yen Beichen waved his Shura saber and casually slashed the mountain peak a few times. As though he was cutting tofu, huge rocks fell one after another. A moment later, a simple cave abode was created. The three of them entered. Azura casually tossed Qin Pian Ran to the side and didn't even spare her a glance. He sat down cross-legged and started to heal himself. Su Zimo began to set up some simple array formations at the entrance of the cave. The location of this cave abode was extremely good. Standing here, one's field of vision was extremely wide, and one could see everything that was happening outside. If Dao Lord Immortal Sword were to make a comeback, they would definitely be discovered immediately. In the following period of time, Yen Beichen would spend most of the day cultivating to heal his injuries. For the rest of the day, he would explain some of his cultivation insights to Su Zimo without holding back. Both of them cultivated the saber, and Yen Beichen had even imparted the secret skills of the fiend's sex to Su Zimo. At that time, Su Zimo's cultivation realm was not high enough and there were some things that he could not understand. Shura's saber intent was not cultivated as well. At that moment, after Yen Beichen's explanation, many of his doubts were resolved and he felt enlightened. As time passed by, Yen Beichen's injuries gradually improved. However, his complexion was still somewhat pale. Each time Su Zimo asked, Yen Beichen would reply casually that it was fine and deal with it. For the past few days, Qin Pian Ran had been guarding the entrance of the cave. She leaned against the wall and looked into the distance in anticipation, not sleeping at all. She did not even heal her injuries. She was afraid that she would miss Dao Lord Immortal Sword's return while she was healing. Day after day, 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Over the past few days, many cultivators passed by this place. However, almost all of them were below the Dharma characteristic realm and void reversions were rare, let alone Dao Lord Immortal Sword. 10 days was enough for Dao Lord Immortal Sword to find helpers and make a comeback. After 10 days of sleepless nights, Qin Pian Ran looked exhausted and her face was yellow. However, she did not give up. However, with each passing day, the light in his eyes dimmed a bit. A month later, that pair of eyes had become dull and lifeless. Su Zimo looked at the woman before him and almost did not dare to recognize her. Initially, she was a flawless and heroic sword sect cultivator. Now, her face was yellow and her hair was unkempt while her body was covered in dust. She could not even compare to a peasant woman in the fields, let alone an ethereal cultivator. For the past few days, she had not even washed or groomed herself. A woman would doll herself up for her lover. She had given up on that person. Therefore, she did not care about her appearance at all. So what if she was ugly or beautiful? For the past month, Qin Pian Ran did not heal her injuries. Coupled with the fact that she did not sleep or rest, her injuries worsened and worsened. The wounds on her body were already rotting and emitting a foul stench. However, she was oblivious to it and merely leaned against the entrance of the cave, looking into the distance with lifeless eyes as the life force in her body drained slowly. There were no tears in her eyes. There was nothing sadder than a dead heart. Chapter 986. Have you given up? This was the first time in a month that Yen Beichen spoke to Qin Pianran. It sounded cold and heartless. However, Su Zimo knew that Yen Beichen was trying to save her. If Yen Beichen was truly cold-blooded and heartless, there was no need for him to do anything. All he had to do was throw Qin Pianran aside and leave her to fend for herself. Qin Pianran would definitely not be able to last long. There was no need for him to go through so much trouble to dig out a cave abode here and wait for a month. Qin Pianran's expression was blank as she opened her mouth slightly, as though she wanted to say something. However, her throat was already dry and she could only make hoarse sounds. Her lips were already dry and cracked. That slight action caused her lips to split open and flow with scarlet blood. Qin Pianran pursed her lips and drank her blood. As though her throat had recovered a little, she murmured softly, "He doesn't know where I am. It's only normal that he hasn't returned." Su Zimo did not believe that reason. Even Qin Pianran herself did not believe it. Because when she said this, there was not the slightest ripple or luster in her eyes, only a deathly stillness. If this was a month ago, Yen Beichen would have sneered and called her a stupid woman. However, at that moment, Yen Beichen did not laugh. He merely looked at Qin Pianran calmly. 20 days ago, I went out once and released the news that you were in my hands. Qin Pianran's heart ached. The last bit of hope in her heart was shattered mercilessly by Yen Beichen's words. A month had passed and no one came. Even though Shura released the news of her, no one came. Right then, the sound of clothes fluttering could be heard from outside the cave abode. More than 10 cultivators were passing by and speeding into the distance. Among those cultivators, the leaders were 2 void reversions, one fat and one skinny. Among the remaining cultivators were Jining Jinjuan and Daoist Master Jin Dan. The formation Su Zimo had set up at the entrance of the cave was quite magical. It was difficult for the cultivators outside to discover this cave, but the people inside could see the situation outside clearly. It's been an eventful period recently. One major event after another. The fat Daoist in the lead sighed and said, during the 1,000 Crane Tea Party, that monster Su Zimo returned and started a massacre. Then, the various great Dao lords rushed to the 100 Refinement sect to ask for him. I didn't expect Hakka Adojin to appear. He's an expert from 5,000 years ago. What happened next? One of the cultivators asked curiously. The skinny Daoist said, the Dao lords were rebuffed and could only retreat. In the end, he bumped into the titular disciple of the Shura sect, Dao Lord Shura. Who is that Shura? He's a cold-blooded, ruthless, and bloodthirsty demon. This battle is really tragic. Why did Shura seek out Dao Monarch Immortal Sword and the others? Who knows? Shura is a lunatic. No one knows what he's thinking. Perhaps he just entered the Dharma characteristic realm and is looking for someone to test his saber. I heard that Shura has some sort of relationship with Su Zimo. The reason why he killed Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others this time round is for Su Zimo. The cultivators discussed excitedly. The skinny Daoist pursed his lips and his gaze shifted. He paused and pointed not far away. It's said that the battle broke out over there. How tragic. I heard that only 2 of the 9 Dao Lord Immortal Sword survived. Which 2? Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Both of them are titular disciples. That's not right. I heard a while ago that a female cultivator named Dharma Daojun from Sword Sect called Qin Pianran is alive as well and was captured by Shura. A cultivator said in confusion. The skinny Daoist shook his head. Can she still be alive after being captured by Shura? Hee hee. I don't think so, the fat Daoist laughed strangely. That female cultivator must be quite good-looking. Otherwise, why would Shura capture her and not kill her directly? I heard that Shura brought that woman along to force Dao Lord Immortal Sword to appear. However, he ignored them completely, the skinny Daoist said. That's for sure. If it was me, I wouldn't appear either, the fat Taoist said, who would be willing to provoke that lunatic Shura for a woman? Furthermore, that woman is probably already a withered flower in Shura's hands. There's even less reason for Dao Lord Immortal Sword to appear for such a woman. Silence filled the cave abode when they heard the voices outside. Qin Pianran's body trembled slightly and her eyes were dark. Her sharp nails had already pierced through her palms and fresh blood was flowing, but she did not realize it at all. Qin Pianran spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted, unable to hold on any longer. She was already severely injured to begin with. For the past month, she had not slept or recuperated and her body and mind were already at their limits. Right now, she was only hanging on by a breath of air and relying on an illusory fantasy. However, when she heard the discussions outside the cave abode, Qin Pianran's thoughts collapsed instantly. She was disheartened and fainted on the spot in her anxiety. Yan Beichen was expressionless but a cold glint flashed through his eyes. The temperature in the cave abode suddenly turned cold and sinister. Su Zimo knew that the group of cultivators outside had already triggered Yan Beichen's killing intent. Yan Beichen stood up slowly and walked out of the cave abode. Right then, the few cultivators outside changed the topic and discussed something else, causing Yan Beichen to stop in his tracks. By the way, have you guys heard? At the Thousand Crane Tea Party, Su Zimo declared war on Diyin. A few days ago, Diyin accepted the challenge. I heard that the time is a month later and the location of the battle is the Dao Inheritance Ground. However, we haven't heard Su Zimo's reply for the past few days. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and his eyes lit up. Diyin accepted the challenge. Initially, he was worried that if Diyin was timid and ignored his declaration of war, he would have to go through a lot of trouble to kill Diyin. Now that Diyin had accepted the challenge, that was for the best. However, what was the Dao Inheritance Ground that the cultivators outside were talking about? It seemed to be very famous. Su Zimo had just arrived in the Middle Continent and did not know much about the various places in the Middle Continent. He had only heard of the Dao Inheritance Ground. At the side, Yan Beichen frowned instinctively when he heard the words Dao Inheritance Ground. Not only is Diyin a monster incarnate, he's also a formidable character. That's right, that move of his is truly perfect. By setting the location of the battle at the Dao Inheritance Ground, Su Zimo's advantage is gone. Now, it's up to Su Zimo to deal with it. What else can he do? He can only admit defeat. That's right. I heard that he has just cultivated to the perfected nascent soul realm and there's a major cultivation realm difference between them. If he enters the Dao Inheritance Ground, he has no chance of winning against Diyin and will definitely die. Fufu, he took the initiative to declare war. If he doesn't go when the time comes, his reputation will definitely suffer a huge blow. What should we do then? It's better than going to the Dao Inheritance Ground to die, right? The more Su Zimo listened, the more confused he became. To the cultivators outside, this Dao Inheritance Ground seemed like a tiger's den that was filled with danger. However, it did not seem to affect Diyin at all. The cultivators discussed and gradually left. Yan Beichen glanced sideways, as though he could see the confusion in Su Zimo's heart. I'll go out for a while. It'll be quick. I'll talk to you about this when I return. With that said, Yan Beichen walked out of the cave abode in a flash. Chapter 987. Not far away, a few tragic cries sounded and peace was restored before long. Before long, Yan Beichen returned with a faint blood aura. Yan Beichen went straight to the point and asked, "How much do you know about the Dao Inheritance Ground?" "Nothing. I've never heard of it." Su Zimo shook his head. Yan Beichen said, "That's normal. The strength of Misty Peak hasn't reached the level where they can come into contact with the Dao Inheritance Ground. As for you, no one probably mentioned it to you when you first arrived in the Middle Continent and entered 100 Refinement Sect. The Tao inheritance ground is not somewhere in the middle continent. Instead, it's a space created by many ancient mighty figures. Su Zimo nodded. In the ancient era, the rise of the human race produced countless paragons and monster incarnates. However, there weren't that many sects and factions. Some ancient mighty figures failed to break through to the Mahayana realm or something happened. They would choose to leave their Tao techniques there and wait for the fated person. Pausing for a moment, Yen Beichen asked, "Do you know why there's a word, Tao, in the title of Void Reversion and Dharma Characteristic Cultivators?" In the world of cultivation, there was a corresponding title for every major realm of cultivator. For example, Jin Dan realm cultivators were known as perfected beings. Nascent soul realm cultivators were known as perfected lords. This was also a symbol of status. Most of the time, one might not be able to tell the other party's cultivation realm due to their abilities. Or, it would be rude to rashly check on the other party's cultivation. However, as long as one heard the other party's name as perfected lord, they would have an answer: the other party was a nascent soul realm cultivator. As for void reversions, they were known as Taoists. Dharma characteristic realm cultivators were known as Tao lords. Su Zimo truly did not know why there was a word, Tao, in those two titles. When he saw Su Zimo shake his head, Yen Beichen continued, "That's because generally speaking, when you cultivate to this realm, you should clarify your Tao heart." Tao heart? Su Zimo was slightly taken aback, revealing a pondering expression. Yen Beichen's voice sounded again, "There are millions of cultivators, and each of them has a different Tao heart. Some want to deliver all living beings from torment, some want to slay demons and devils, some want to be free and unfettered, some want to live forever, some want to become powerful, some want to take revenge. Make your Tao heart clear and not be shaken by external things. You can't be refined by fire, drowned by water, crushed by the heavens, and buried by the earth. Only by being firm like a boulder and immovable like a mountain can you cultivate the grand Tao." The Tao heart was the purpose of cultivation. Why did he cultivate? Cultivation was an act that defied the heavens, and there were countless difficulties and obstacles on the path. Only by constantly guarding one's Tao heart would one be able to arrive at the other side. Yen Beichen's eyes shone with a sharp light as they fell on Su Zimo's face. He asked faintly, "Why do you cultivate?" Su Zimo was in a daze as he recalled the scene of him being bullied by perfected being Tsang Lang in Pingyang town. He recalled the scene of Zhui Feng turning into ashes in order to save him. He recalled the scene where peach blossoms fell from the peach blossom tree and a woman in blood-colored robes imparted him a cultivation technique before stepping into the path of cultivation. Everything felt like it was yesterday. Su Zimo murmured softly, "I don't have a spirit root. When I first started cultivating, I merely wanted to fight against fate and change my own fate." The scene before him changed. Su Zimo saw his elder brother, Su Hong, who was gradually aging. He saw the ruins and bones of Yen country. He saw the mortals who could not resist at all under the trampling of cultivators and demon beasts in the flames of war. He saw the tear-stained faces of all living beings in the world and their helpless eyes. Gradually, Su Zimo's gaze turned resolute as he said slowly, "Right now, I'm not cultivating to change my own fate. I want to change the fates of all living beings in the world. I want to establish a Tao. A Tao that's different from immortals, Buddhas and fiends. A Tao that can be cultivated without a spirit root. That's my Tao heart." Yen Beichen looked at Su Zimo for a long time without saying anything. Even with his temperament, he could not help but reveal a hint of shock in his eyes at this moment. Initially, he was merely asking casually. However, he did not expect Su Zimo's answer to be so shocking that even he was shocked. There was nothing much to say about establishing a Tao heart. It could not be said that a Tao heart that delivered all living beings from torment was good while a Tao heart that was carefree was bad. However, there were still differences in Tao hearts. For example, some cultivators had a Tao heart that was for revenge and were less magnanimous. After a cultivator took revenge, they would definitely encounter a bottleneck in their cultivation and feel lost. However, most cultivators had a Tao heart that was for longevity. If they wanted longevity, they had to cultivate and break through continuously. There was no end to the path of longevity. Compared to revenge, the Tao heart for longevity was much more magnanimous. However, Su Zimo's Tao heart, structure, and magnanimity were countless times higher than things like longevity and slaying demons and fiends. He wanted to change the fates of all living beings in the world. How magnanimous was that? How magnanimous was that? How bold was that? Good, good, good. Yen Beichen snapped out of his trance and nodded. Zimo, I'm inferior to you in this aspect. Su Zimo was probably the only person in this world who could make sure about his head. Yen Beichen said, the legacy left behind by an ancient mighty figure requires cultivators to enter the inheritance ground and establish a Tao heart before they can be recognized. That will depend on their opportunities. Su Zimo nodded and had a rough understanding of the Tao inheritance ground. The Tao inheritance ground was not only a place where many ancient mighty figures left behind their legacies, it was also a place where many cultivators established their Tao hearts. After establishing their Tao hearts, every cultivator could have their own Tao title. This inheritance ground has been passed down since the ancient era. The Tao techniques within are still around? Su Zimo was surprised. Of course, Yen Beichen explained, how many conjoint body mighty figures have appeared since the ancient era. Apart from the legacies left behind by ancient mighty figures, there will be mighty figures entering the inheritance ground every generation to leave behind their legacies. Furthermore, the truly top-notch Tao technique legacies inside are extremely rare and have strict requirements for one's Tao heart. Not everyone is qualified to inherit them. Top-notch Tao technique legacies? Su Zimo asked. Yen Beichen said, in the inheritance ground, the legacies left behind by many mighty figures are all sorts of strange things. It could be a weapon, a boulder, or a statue. However, legend has it that the strongest dozens of mighty figures of the ancient era left their legacies in a unique region. This region is in the center of the Tao inheritance ground and is called the Three Tribulations domain. As the name suggests, there are three major tribulations in the Three Tribulations domain. The first is the Wind Tribulation, the second is the Fire Tribulation, and the third is the Thunder Tribulation. Only by resisting the Three Tribulations can one reach the center of the Three Tribulations domain and see the legacies left behind by the dozens of ancient mighty figures. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he asked, Brother Yen, I'm sure you entered the Tao inheritance ground back then and cleared the Three Tribulations domain. Did you reach the innermost part? No, Yen Beichen shook his head. I only cleared the Wind and Fire Tribulations and almost died in the Thunder Tribulation. His dermic powers would increase as well. Furthermore, he would be able to use even more trump cards and would definitely not be disadvantaged against Diin. However, you're not at the Void Reversion Realm after all, Yen Beichen said, you've only broken through to perfected nascent soul for more than a month. If you want to advance further and break through to the Void Reversion Realm, you'll need dozens of years at the fastest. That's if everything goes smoothly for you. If you encounter a bottleneck, there are countless paragons who are stuck at the nascent soul realm for hundreds of years. Su Zimo knew that Yen Beichen was not lying. After all, the breakthrough from the nascent soul realm to the void reversion realm was even more difficult. Most of the time, without any opportunities, it was possible for one to not advance for hundreds of years just by cultivating in seclusion. Yen Beichen continued, Diin is very smart. He didn't give you too much time. A month later, you'll have a life and death battle in the Tao inheritance ground. It's impossible for you to break through to the void reversion realm in a month. A month passed in the blink of an eye, and breaking through to the void reversion realm was practically a fantasy. If Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he was about to speak. Yen Beichen read his thoughts instantly and shook his head. It's even more impossible for you to break through to the void reversion realm in the Tao inheritance ground. The Tao inheritance ground is isolated from the outside world and you won't be able to comprehend heaven and earth at all. It's a ruin inside and the spirit chi is thin. There's not enough energy for you to absorb either. Ever since the ancient era, not a single cultivator has broken through in the Tao inheritance ground. Everyone enters and leaves immediately after obtaining the inheritance. They won't stay inside for long. Su Zimo fell silent. No one will laugh at you even if you don't go for this battle. Yen Beichen said, all the cultivators can tell that Diyin is wary of your demon methods. Even if you're a major cultivation realm apart, he won't dare to fight you. However, if you accept the challenge, you'll be falling into his trap. Su Zimo suddenly asked, Brother Yen, if it were you, would you accept the challenge? After a moment of silence, Yen Beichen suddenly smiled and nodded. Yes. Su Zimo smiled as well. To a certain extent, they were similar. Yen Beichen came to help Su Zimo this time round and faced top Dharma characteristic cultivators such as Tao Lord Immortal Sword and Tao Lord Cloud Rain. This trip was also a risky one. However, he still came. Su Zimo did not declare war on Diyin for himself this time round. Diyin's existence could not threaten him. Diyin was threatening the friends around him. Diyin nearly killed Little Fatty and Ji Qingtian, that was something that Su Zimo could not tolerate. The reason why he declared war on Diyin was because he wanted to eliminate these dangers completely. If he missed this opportunity, Su Zimo did not know how long he would have to wait for the next one. Therefore, he had to accept the challenge and do his best to kill Diyin in the Tao inheritance ground. Furthermore, this battle was initiated by Su Zimo. If he avoided the battle at that moment, it would have a huge impact on his Tao heart and it would definitely become his greatest mental demon in the future. His Tao was to be fearless. Yen Beichen sighed gently. What a pity. If I had entered the Dharma characteristic realm a step later, I might have been able to enter the Tao inheritance ground and help you. The Tao inheritance ground only allowed nascent soul and void reversion cultivators to enter. Even Dharma characteristic and conjoint body cultivators were not allowed. Brother Yen, you've already helped me enough. Su Zimo chuckled. Boom. Right then, a loud bang sounded from afar and the ground shook. A terrifying aura burst forth and surged into the horizons, forming a gigantic pillar of fire that burned the clouds in the firmaments red. The auspicious clouds were set ablaze and the skies were filled with multicolored light. An enormous pressure spread out, and everything fell silent. Hakka Dojin has broken through. Yen Beichen looked into the distance and murmured softly. This is a good thing for you. Extreme Fire is your master. Go and take a look at him, Yen Beichen added. Alright, I'll be right back. Su Zimo wanted to see Hakka Dojin as well and congratulated his master. After bidding farewell to Yen Beichen, he sped off. Chapter 989. Su Zimo sprinted the entire way and arrived at 100 Refinement Sect before long. Uncle Master, you're finally back. Before long, he saw Tao Lord Scarlet Star running over. When he saw Su Zimo, he seemed to be relieved. Grandmaster Extreme Fire has just broken through to the conjoint body realm and was looking for you. Tao Lord Scarlet Star brought Su Zimo to the main hall of 100 Refinement Sect before long. The hall was spacious and bright. Some of the 100 Refinement Sect experts who were guarding Hakka Dojin's breakthrough had just dispersed. Right now, there were not many people left in the hall. Apart from Hakka Dojin and a few other 100 Refinement Sect cultivators, there was also Shangguanzi of Chiguramon, Elder Gu of Ancient Array Sect and Elder Gu of Elixir Yang Sect. Su Zimo entered the hall and was shocked when he saw Hakka Dojin. Hakka Dojin did not seem to have changed much. However, as he stood there, he was like a huge furnace that was burning fiercely. He had merged with the entire world, giving others a feeling that he was unshakable. Even the strongest supreme Dharma characteristic could only control 90% of the heaven and earth powers. However, Haka Adojin, who had broken through to the conjoint body realm, was heaven and earth just by standing there. Zimo, come and sit here. When Haka Adojin caught sight of Su Zimo, he waved with a gentle gaze. Su Zimo walked forward and sat in the middle of a group of Dharma Daojun and conjoint body mighty figures with a calm expression. Haka Adojin asked, "Do you know that Diin asked you to accept the challenge at the Dao inheritance ground?" "I do," Su Zimo nodded. "What are your plans?" Haka Adojin asked. "Accept the challenge." Su Zimo did not hide his thoughts and merely said those two words in a firm tone. Haka Adojin's expression did not change. In the entire cultivation world, he was probably the only person who knew Su Zimo the best. He was not surprised by this answer. "Child, how much do you know about the Dao inheritance ground?" Shengguanzi, who was at the side, liked Su Zimo and asked gently. "I know a little." Su Zimo said, "The human race's land of inheritance. In there, I can't use any of my demonic means. Without the demon clan's methods, how confident are you of winning against Diin when there is a difference of a major realm between you and him?" Elder Gu asked. Su Zimo said honestly, "I have no confidence." "Even so, you still want to go?" Elder Gu frowned. "I have to go." Su Zimo's tone was firm. "Don't be in such a hurry to make a decision. I just received some news. Listen to it." Haka Adojin said slowly, "Apart from Diin, Dao being Heavenly Dipper, Dao being Zephyr Thunder and Monk Formless will enter the Dao inheritance ground as well." A cold light flashed in Su Zimo's eyes. Just by hearing the names of the three cultivators, he could deduce that they were the three titular disciples of Heavenly Dipper sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and Formless Monastery. The reason why the three titular disciples were rushing to enter the Dao inheritance ground at this moment was self-evident. Perfected Lord Pang Lon of Heavenly Dipper sect died in the hands of Su Zimo at the Thousand Crane Tea Party. Zephyr Thunder Palace had always wanted to obtain Su Zimo's Purple Thunder Manual. As for Formless Monastery, their goal should be to create inheritances such as Qinglian and the Daming True Sutra. Su Zimo might not be able to win against Diin alone. Furthermore, there were three more titular disciples now. Haka Adojin said, "Every sect only has a single titular disciple. There's no need to talk about the strength of that disciple. Even if the three of them are weaker than Diin, they won't be that much weaker." Elder Gu nodded as well. "That's right. Titular disciples are the face of the major sections. Almost all of them can only groom one after spending 1,000 years or even thousands of years of resources." Su Zimo went on a killing spree at the Thousand Crane Tea Party. Even against the encirclement of 8 void reversions, he was able to suppress the 8 of them domineeringly. What he relied on was the burst power of his dragonification after fusing with the scarlet-haired Een spirit. If he could not use the scarlet-haired Een spirit, channel his bloodline or transform into a dragon, given his current combat strength, it would be difficult to predict the outcome of any titular disciple. When he saw that Su Zimo was silent, Elder Gu said, "You might not know about the 3 titular disciples since you've just arrived in the Middle Continent. All 3 of them were once ranked at the top of the phenomenon ranking and have never tasted defeat against anyone of the same cultivation realm. The 3 of them have been famous for a long time and are the strongest monster incarnates of the current era with dazzling battle results. More than 100 years ago, Dao being Heavenly Dipper fought against the current Shura of the era to a draw." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He had witnessed Yan Beichen's combat strength personally. The fact that Dao being Heavenly Dipper could fight against Yan Beichen to a draw was unimaginable how terrifying his combat strength was. A hint of hesitation appeared in Su Zimo's heart. All of a sudden, he felt an immense pressure that made it hard for him to breathe. The enemies he was about to face were way too strong. If he entered the Tao inheritance ground this time round, he would face the greatest danger in his cultivation. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. Su Zimo's sudden appearance finally triggered the greatest reaction of the super sects, and they did not hesitate to send out their titular disciples to kill him. Hakka Dojin said, "Apart from the three of them, I reckon that Sword's sect will make a move as well." The titular disciple of Sword's sect was the Dharma Dao Jun. Although he could not enter the Tao inheritance ground, the heaven-slaying sword art was in Su Zimo's possession. Sword's sect would definitely not let this matter rest. Shen Guanzi said, "This is only confirmed news. There are still some unknowns and uncertainties. The true situation you're facing is even more severe than what you know now." The Tao inheritance ground was not a secret space. As long as one was at the conjoint body realm, they could activate it. At that time, countless cultivators would surge in. As for how many of those cultivators had their eyes on Su Zimo, no one knew. Su Zimo frowned and remained silent. Everyone was clearly aware that he was facing a difficult choice at this moment. If he retreated, his life would not be in danger. With Hakka Dojin as his backing, his future potential was limitless. If he entered, he would most likely die. Shen Guanzi said gently, "Actually, you don't have to feel too burdened. We don't agree with you accepting the challenge in the Tao inheritance ground." Hakka Dojin nodded. The Tao inheritance ground is a space created by many ancient mighty figures and has a unique barrier. Only Jinying Jinjuan and void reversions can enter. I've just advanced to the conjoint body realm and can only help you open the Tao inheritance ground. However, if you encounter danger inside, my strength won't be able to penetrate that barrier and I won't be able to help. Pausing for a moment, Hakka Dojin continued, "Void reversions of 100 refinement sect can enter, but they won't be able to withstand a single blow from a titular disciple. If they enter to help you, they'll only die for nothing." Although his words were heartless, it was an indisputable fact. No void reversion would dare to enter the Tao inheritance ground and stand on Su Zimo's side. This meant that once Su Zimo entered the Tao inheritance ground, he would have to face everything alone. Elder Gu persuaded, "You don't have to make a decision in a hurry. You still have a month to consider. There's still time." Hakka Dojin and the others exchanged glances and prepared to leave quietly, leaving Su Zimo alone. "I've made up my mind." Just as Extreme Fire and the others arrived at the entrance of the hall, Su Zimo's voice sounded. "A month later, I'll enter the Tao inheritance ground and accept all challenges." After saying that, Su Zimo felt as though all the pressure on him disappeared instantly and he suddenly felt relaxed. There was no retreat for his Tao. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.